pray that you would just move, speak through all of these things. God, I pray that you would just highlight the different areas that each of us need to work on and the different things that we need to be able to do and take away from today's session. We thank you, Lord, for what a great opportunity this is and all the things that you are doing to sow into your people, to grow your people, oh God, to build and grow the kingdom of God for your glory, God. So, Lord, we give you this time. We thank you for these next few hours that we're together, and we just pray that you would help us make the most of it. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. 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 Let's do this. Let's punch forward a couple of slides. We had some questions. One more, Garrett. We had some questions that we asked you. I'm going to pull up the results. If you guys participated in that Menti.com. Our first question was, I don't think this one is on here, but it said, what are you hoping to get out of Home Buying 101? Most of you did answer the obvious answer. You're trying to buy a house, right? Okay, I will move on to the next one. Does anyone want to guess what the average age of first-time home buyers is? 36. Who said 45? Did I hear 45? Dang. Okay. So I heard 36. Anybody else? 30? Oh, okay. If you have been following our social media account, you already know the answer. What everybody, the average response on that little poll that we did, everybody answered 34.6 years old. That was their average response out of everyone who polled in here. The actual statistical age in, I think his latest data was 2024, is actually 38 years old. Kind of crazy, huh? A little bit older than you would think. If you look back into previous generations, I think baby boomers, the number was way down. Now I think millennials and Gen Z, a lot more younger home buyers, this newer generation, the age is going up. And I'll be honest with you, it's getting a lot more difficult for people to buy a house, and that's why a little bit of why we're here, right? Yes. Let's keep going. I have, what's this other question? When do you expect to buy your first home? Some of you answered within a couple of years. Oh gosh, Erico, I'm having trouble with this. I can be kind of a boomer when it comes to technology. I struggle. Okay, 1 to 2 years, 3 to 5 years, 5 to 10, or 10 plus. Oh, you guys are very optimistic. I like it. Nobody said more than 10 years. Only one person said more than 10 years. Whoever you are, we're going to change your mind today. God bless you. The majority of you are, I like it. You guys you are full of faith, a lot of optimism here. 1 to 2 years was tied for 1 to 2 or 3 to 5 years. So you guys are looking to buy a house soon, yes? Yeah. Good. All right, one more, 2 more. How much annual household income do you need to purchase a home? A little bit more technical. The primary response was $75,000 to $125,000. It comes into a few more brackets. It goes higher, and I think the last one was 250 plus. But we'll answer that in a little bit. We'll answer that later today. And then finally here it says, what is the best tool for buying a house? Your W-2 income, cash, retirement funds, etc. Again, like the other one, it's a little bit of a what? Rich husband? Who said rich husband? My goodness. All right, I didn't think about that, but you're not wrong. You're not wrong. That's the easy way out, okay? This is not a dating class. We're not teaching you how to marry rich. That's like the shortcut. If you just marry rich, you can ignore everything we learned today. You just bypass, but you're good. Anyways, I'm glad we got some of those. I wanted to field some of those questions and just see where everyone is, I guess, as a group, and then we're going to answer some of those more technical pieces, and then we'll see where everybody lands after this. But let me go ahead and, can we move forward, Garrett, to a couple more slides? One more. There we go. All right. As we're opening up here, I wanted to answer the question of who is this for? I know if you look around the room, we've got a big age range. We've got a lot of younger and older, a good mix of different age groups. I think a lot of cultural backgrounds as well. I think it's one of the blessings of our church here at City Blessing. But I'm excited to welcome all of you. And I would say this: who is this seminar for? Who is this session and everything that we're doing with Home Buying 101? Who is this for? It is for any of you who have not yet bought your first home. If you haven't bought your first home, you're looking to do it, this is exactly for you. It doesn't matter. I listed out a few of these things here. Doesn't matter if you're a college student, a young professional, a not so young professional. You could be a couple preparing for marriage. There's a lot of people who are getting engaged and doing all sorts of other exciting things in the congregation, a lot of us. And finally, there's going to be some families who are currently renting. So again, it doesn't matter what background you're coming from. It doesn't matter what age range or demographic, whatever it is. If you haven't bought your first home, that's exactly why we're here. We want to equip you with some of that knowledge and things here today. And this is what I wanted to say, is that why we are doing this, why I felt like this is an important thing to do and equip you guys as a body here, is that there are steps, ideally, that we need to take, ideally 2 to 3 years, I would say. 2 to 3 years before you are ready to buy a house. So I like it. A lot of you say 1 to 2, 3 to 5 years that you will be ready to be able to be in this position to buy a home. Great. I'm for it. We're going to get ambitious with some of these goals, and I'm for it. But I believe, and I know from experience from working with a few people, if you are totally unprepared, it will take you some time to make the right moves in your career, in your savings, in your job, in your family life, all of these things that you're going to structure to be able to get ready to make this big jump. A little bit about me, you get to meet your speaker. You can read my bio in another time. I wanted to share this. Before we get started and dive into a lot more of the meat of the presentation, I wanted to be very clear about this. I can tell you in one very simple phrase and in one sentence before we dive into all of this, exactly what I am selling and what I am trying to pitch to you today. Absolutely nothing. Okay? I want you to trust this because I know I want to clear the air and make sure it doesn't come across the wrong way. The reason that I am here is because I am a pastor here at City Blessing Church, and I want to sow into this community and into this congregation. The overwhelming majority of you who are here today are part of City Blessing Church. I know we've got a couple of people from outside that are coming in. Great to have you. But again, part of my heart and why the reason that I'm here is because I want to sow into this community. And I will tell you this, I'm not selling you anything. There's no pitch at the end, the beginning, the middle, the end. I'm not pitching any of this to you. I will tell you flat out that if you come to me and say, James, I am ready to buy a house tomorrow or next week or even today, this evening, this afternoon, I want to start looking for houses and I need a real estate agent, I will politely decline. And I will say, I will pass you on and kindly refer you to some people, hopefully within our congregation, that can help you. This is not what I do for a living. Is that clear? This is not what I do for a living. I'm not here trying to pitch you and get you to feed into my business and try to do some weird marketing scheme or whatever it is. I know that this is a field and an industry that I have been in business in, that God has called me to, and I have done a lot of things in the real estate industry, and what I want to do is give back and sow into this community. I think I mentioned this a few weeks ago, the inspiration for this event. I talked with some of our young guys and realized after maybe like an hour to 2 hours of having brunch and talking about life and home buying and all of these goals and things that they had set up, I realized like there's just some key pieces of knowledge that if we are, I know coffee's going, I need the coffee too. If we are to get all of this information out and if we're to tell them all of these things, they can make big changes in their life. And it was such a blessing to them. I'm so excited to see those guys going in the direction that they are. But I realized that had nobody told them, they wouldn't have made those pivots and those changes that are now going to get them ready in the next year or two. Does that make sense? Yes. So I hope you hear my heart in this. That's a little bit about me. Let's go over to the overview. There we go. All right, what are we going to do today? Talking about we'll come in with our introduction. We're going to, I labeled it laying our foundations. We're going to talk about real estate and why real estate, what is the benefit and what are some of the good things that real estate can benefit you, your family, your portfolio, all of these things. What is what I call the language of real estate. This is going to be where the bulk of what we are focusing on is under that little label, language of real estate. There's going to be a lot of different terms. We're going to get rather technical if this is your first time thinking or even talking about anything related to home buying. We're going to move relatively quick. We don't have too much time today, but I also want to let you know you have the notes in front of you. Don't worry, we will make the entire presentation available to you. We have a recording that's going as well. We will also make the entire live stream and the recording available to you. Oh my gosh, before I forget, Hello to everybody tuning in via the live stream. We have our guys in San Diego, and we have our guys in Portland, Oregon, who are tuning in. They requested the live stream link. We've got a few people tuning in from other City Blessing churches, so we're excited to have you guys. Feel free. I think we're gonna ask that you guys tune in on the live stream. Bug us with your questions later in the Q&A portion. But we're gonna talk about language of real estate. That's gonna be where we focus a lot. We'll take a little bit of a break in between. Then we'll go run through a live example. We'll hear a testimonial from somebody who recently bought a home, and then we'll give you a roadmap of what to do next and some future steps, and then we'll just open it. We'll have like maybe 20, 30 minutes of just open Q&A. So please jot down your questions. Think of questions that you have throughout the thing. I'll periodically stop throughout portions. If you have questions about the last couple of slides, feel free to ask them as we pause there. But please jot down any other questions that we don't answer in those segments. If they're not super related to the slides on hand, save them for the end. We'll have a big Q&A portion. I want to make sure that we're addressing a lot of the needs in the room. Yes? All right. This is our goal here, and this is what I would state for myself and our company, and this is what we do. I work on the investment side of real estate. We're developing houses. We are buying land, and we're building houses and doing all of that stuff. Our goal as a company, for anybody who's investing in real estate, our goal is to build wealth through real estate. For our company, what we say, it's on our tagline on our website and stuff. It's our goal and it's yours. I would say the same thing should apply here, and I think that this is what I would urge you guys and encourage you to be able to do, is that this should become your goal. Why are you trying to buy your house? Why are you trying to do all this? Yes, it's nice to have a place to live. Obviously, you want to put your family in there and do all of these things for yourself and all of that stuff. But ultimately, why we're equipping you with this is because it is a powerful wealth building tool in your portfolio, in your life. It's going to be an asset in all of the things that you end up accumulating over your time, investing and growing in all of these things. Our conviction, my conviction, and I guess our team and what we're bringing here and why we're doing this today, is that I believe that with the right preparation, anyone can become a homeowner. Yes. Amen. Any of you can become a homeowner. This is what I want to kind of butt up against this. I think there's a lot of negative connotations or negative, assumptions that people have. People think it's a bad economy. There's been a lot of inflation over the past few years. If you look at the prices of houses, if you look at the interest rates, anybody ever see interest rates lately? Are they high or are they low? They're kind of high. We'll talk about that, and we'll go into more detail in a little second. But all of these things can build up this negative conversation, these negative assumptions about whether or not this is even feasible for you. And I would say this is my absolute true conviction, is that with the right steps, doing the right things with the right preparation, any of you can buy a house. In California, in Southern California, this is arguably one of the most difficult, most expensive markets to buy real estate in the United States. Yes, can we agree on that? Yes. It's expensive. Buying a house and real estate in California is expensive, is it not? Yes. It is. It's challenging, it's difficult. But this is why we want to sow into this and give you guys the right pieces of knowledge, the right pieces of preparation, so that you can be equipped, and that, we believe every one of you can be a homeowner. You believe that? Yes. Yes. All right, let's move forward. Here we go. I'm going to call this next segment Laying Foundations. I want to look at a bit of a biblical perspective. We're going to look at a couple of Bible verses. Can't have a pastor up here, doing a seminar without bringing us some Bible verses, right? Okay, Matthew chapter 25. I want to run through like 3 or 4, maybe even 5 of these. Matthew chapter 25. This isn't Sunday service, so you don't have to turn there. Let me just look at the screen. All right, Matthew 25. It's the parable of the talents. If you don't know this story, there is a master. Jesus tells us that there is a master who he's going away to a far land. He's going on a trip, business trip, whatever he's traveling, and he gives his servants. He goes to 3 servants, and he gives them a measure of money. Depends on the translation or the specific gospel that you read. To some of them he gives talents, to some of them he gives minas. I assume throughout Jesus' ministry, he might have told the story a few different times, and you get different accounts and different translations, different pieces from different gospels. But in Matthew chapter 25, it was talking about talents. I think it's 10, 5, and 1 here in the book of Matthew. And it says right here in verse 23, it says, his Lord, the master, said to him, if you know the story, right? Do you know what the guy with the 10, what did he do? Anybody? He doubled it. The guy with 5, what did he do? Same thing, he doubled it. The guy with 1, what did he do? He took it, he hid it, shoved it in the ground. He said, I was afraid, I hid it in the ground. I did absolutely nothing with it. Here you go. You get back what you gave me in the first place, right? And so this is where we come in. Verse 23, it says, his Lord or master said to him, the 10 who multiplied it and doubled it. He said, well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful over a few things. I will make you ruler over many things. Enter into the joy of your Lord. There's a few things that I want to touch on here. This is where we get introduced to the idea and the principle of what stewardship looks like. Anybody understand what stewardship means? Stewardship means something has been entrusted into my care, and while it is not mine to hang on to, it is my responsibility to do my utmost, to give it my best care, my most responsibility to do what I can with what has been placed in my hand. And that's what we see with the guy with 10, that's what we see with the guy with 5, right? What do? They doubled it. Was it theirs? No, it was the master's. But then, even though it's the master's, they stewarded well the things that were placed in their hand. They multiplied and they increased. Where we get into these other things, let me jump down to the investing for the sake of increase. I saw this, I read a book about this. This is kind of an audacious claim, but he read this passage and he said this. He said, I believe that God is a benevolent capitalist. You can argue with me after class if you want. But he said, I believe that God is a benevolent capitalist, as in he is good, he gives good gifts, there is grace, there is abundance of grace, and all of these things. But God wants increase. For whatever reason, he gives these stories, and he gives it multiple times. Jesus is telling this story, and the master is very demanding. He says, you wicked and lazy servant, how did you not do anything with what I gave you? The kingdom of God, this is a principle in the kingdom of God that I hope you catch today, and why we're doing all of these things. Why do you need to grow your assets? Why do you need to grow your portfolio, your finances, all of these things? It's not the end goal or end purpose of your life, but it is a part of what God has called you to steward and to increase. That at the end of your life, I want to go up to the Lord and say, I want him to say to me, well done, good and faithful servant. And I can say, Lord, whatever you entrusted in my hand, the knowledge and the industry and the finance, the real estate, everything that you gave me, that you equipped me with in my career and all of these things, I did everything I could with it. I gave it everything I had while I was there on the earth, and now here I am entering into glory, and I could say I gave it my all. That's what I hope that we can say at the end of our lives through every piece and facet of our lives. And here's the piece here, it's talking about authority. If you read the stories, the one in, I believe, either the book of Mark or book of Luke, it talks about minas. And it says that when they multiplied the minas, so it's another measure of money, it said that when the 5 multiplied another 5, 2, another 2, he said, good, well done, good and faithful servant, I will now give you authority, not only over money, but he says, I will give you authority over cities. And so I believe that there's this concept that when you steward things well in your life, when you steward your finances, something as unimportant, in my opinion, unimportant as finances, as money, if you can steward that well, God will give you real authority in your life. He will give you real authority to be able to do more things when you have proven that, Lord, what you have put in my hand with money, I've gone and done good things with it. I've gone and increased it. I've gone and sowed it. I've multiplied it. I've stewarded these things well. Verse 27 says this, right? It's talking about the other one. The other guy says, so you ought to have deposited my money with the bankers, and at my coming I would have received back my own with interest. So take the talent from him and give it to him who has 10 talents. This is a mind-blowing principle, but it's so true, and you see it everywhere in the world. Verse 29 says, for to everyone who has, more will be given, and he will have abundance. But from him who does not have, even what he has will be taken away. It is a harsh principle and it's a harsh reality, and I think you see it more in recent times. I'd say in the last 5, 8, 10 years, you see kind of a divergence in our economy. The rich are getting rich, the poor are getting poorer. Right. It's just a walking out of a principle that we see in the Bible. To him who has, more will be given. It sounds mean, it sounds like unfortunate or whatever, but it's very true. Because if you know how to steward what you have, more will come to you. If you don't know how to steward what little you have, even what little you have will be taken away from you, and it'll be given to the guy who has more than enough. Yeah. That's just a reality. I don't need to tell you this. You can see it in real life, right? Let's move forward. I brought up this. I've been meditating on this verse so much this week. It's so powerful. Deuteronomy 8, verse 18. If you were here for our Walnut English service, I mentioned this. It says, you shall remember the Lord your God, for it is he who gives you the power to get wealth, that he may establish his covenant, which he swore to your fathers as it is this day. Here's a question I wanted us to answer. Who gives you the ability to make money? God. That's it. And if you read the context of this is what I shared in our Sunday service, is that if you read the context of this isn't just a like a hoorah verse of like, hey, you can get rich quick. This is a warning to the children of Israel. It says that when you succeed, when you are multiplied, it says specifically, build beautiful houses and you dwell in them. When your silver and gold and everything is multiplied, that you do not forget the Lord your God. But remember, like, who is it that gave you the ability to do any of these things in the first place? It is the Lord. It is the Lord, it is He who gives you the power to get wealth. Why? So that He may establish His covenant with you. Let me unpack that a little bit. He marks you as the people of God with His name. You are marked with the name of God, the presence of God. And it's true of the Israelites and it's true of us as, grafted into this community, grafted into this covenant, under the new covenant, under Jesus. But again, just like the Israelites, we are marked by the name of God, of the God that we serve. If all the Christians in the world are failing in their finances, their homes are getting foreclosed on, they can't do well in school, they are just absolute trash in every area, oh, but they pray, man. Oh, but they love Jesus, but they fail in every other area of their life. What kind of reputation and what kind of not status, but like what kind of reflection are you giving on the God that you serve? I believe, again, it's not the end all of all of these things, but I believe that God gives you the power to get wealth. God will cause you to prosper and to succeed so long as your heart is surrendered unto the heart of the Father and you don't get these things backwards. Yes. We'll talk about this a little bit more. Genesis 24:35, talking about Abraham. It says, the Lord has greatly blessed my master, Abraham. He has become a wealthy man. The Lord has given him flocks of sheep and goats, cattle, silver and gold, male and female servants, camels and donkeys. And Proverbs 10 verse 22, the blessing of the Lord makes one rich, and He adds no sorrow to it. Let me kind of conclude with this. We'll hang right here for a second. There are a lot of rich and miserable people. Yes. Can you understand that? I think we can agree on that. Having money and being successful is not going to make you happy. And it is not the end goal of your life, especially not as believers and not as Christians. This is my heart and urge to you guys, especially as Christians, is that get the right things in the right place. If we aren't careful, we can do all these financial pieces and seminars, you can get geared up for success and do all of these things, and God forbid that you make it an idol in your life, and that becomes a thing that you are pursuing more than the Lord Jesus Christ. That is not my heart, and that is not my intent. We can stop right here if that's where this is leading you, okay? I hope you are clear from the beginning that's not what we're doing here. My heart is that as your life and your heart are surrendered unto the Lordship of Jesus Christ, as He dictates the things in your life and rules all of those things, as you succeed and as He makes you grow and build and prosper and become successful, all of that in your portfolio and your investing and your career, all of that goes right there with the rest of your life and your heart unto the Lordship of Jesus. How many of you know we're building a big building next door? You know what that thing costs? I talk about it all the time. We started out at like 6.8, roughly 7 million. I will tell you, that number is quickly adding up. There are a lot of other things, we'll announce it in the next thing, but it's looking more like 8 something, maybe even closer to $9 million. That's a lot of money, yes? How many of you know if you don't have your personal finances right, if you don't have your primary residence and these other basic building blocks of building your portfolio and your assets, it is going to be difficult for you to sow into projects that grow the kingdom of God, just like that one. If you can't even get your home and all of these things figured out, it is difficult when we come into that. We say, we're raising millions of dollars. What can you do? I will give my best, but it's not much. And again, there's nothing wrong with the heart behind that. Jesus gave the widow with the 2 mites, right? She's given more than anybody else. It's your heart posture that He wants to get right. But I'm saying the widow with the 2 mites, right? The 2 little copper coins, He said she gave more than everybody else here. But what happens if I take the heart of the widow who would give everything that she had and I stick it in a person who is successful, who is building up all of these things, that never loses that heart and says, I have all of this, but God, I would give it all for your glory. That's who I'm looking to build in this room. Does that make sense, church? All right, let's move forward. With that, I would say this, that you are laying the foundation of generational wealth and purpose in your family. There are some of you here, I've talked to a number of you coming into this. There are some of you here that are going to be the first-time homebuyers in any generation of your family. Your parents didn't do it, your grandparents didn't do it. Some of you, a lot of you came here from overseas. You weren't born here, came to this country. America is a land of incredible, incredible opportunity. And I believe it is so. And so many of you are establishing this for the first time in your family. And it's going to be an incredible thing where the future generations of your family will grow from this moving forward. And I believe that all of these things will help you capture and pursue your greater purposes in life. I said it already. Money is a means to an end. It is not by any means, it should not be the end goal of your life, especially as a Christian. But it isn't. It's a vehicle. And all of these things that we're equipping you with is a vehicle to the greater purposes that you are called to pursue in your life. What I've said is that, why I'm doing this, why, I know it's a little excessive. You see the branding everywhere, right? I forgot to mention this. Between everything, I know most of you paid a $15 ticket to be here. Between the food, I'll just be upfront with you. The box of food that you are eating costs $12. That leaves me with $3. Everybody got either a matcha or a latte. I can guarantee you I am not here to make money off of you, okay? It's paying the cost, and we have all staff that are running around. They're paid to be here. They're running the event with a high level of discipline. Can we just give a shout out to the team? Thank you so much. Thank you guys for running the event. But with all of these things, I say, like, for me, why I'm doing this with the company and all of this stuff is because for me, I have seen my business, my company, and real estate and all of these things have become the vehicle through which I can pursue my calling to serve the Lord. If you know me, I'm a pastor here at City Blessing Church. A little maybe of a less known fact, I'm not saying it to brag or do any of this, but I want to share my heart with you guys. I don't draw a salary from church for being a pastor. City Blessing Church does not pay me anything to do any of the things I do related to ministry. And if God willing, I would like that to be possible for the rest of my life, if possible. And I pray, Lord, you've given me a business. Help me supply my need and even the needs of others through the vehicle that you've given me so that I can pursue the call of God in my life to preach the gospel and to be called as a pastor and to just tell people the good news about Jesus. But these things that are in your life, in your portfolio, your assets, whatever, should become things that fuel you and push you and drive you and enable you to pursue your greater purpose. Amen? Yes. Okay, let's do this and then we'll dive into some more technicals. Last thing here, buying real estate will demand something of you, a mindset shift. What you did to get here will not get you to the next step. What got you here won't get you there. Does that make sense? Yes. If you haven't bought a home yet, the things that you were doing probably kept you exactly in that phase. Exactly where you are. We need to shift. We need to change certain things so that you can get to this next phase. And that's what we're doing here. Everybody good? Yes. Can we keep going? Yes. All right, let's go. Why real estate? Again, I'm going to try and move quick. Some of this is going to get pretty technical, pretty quick. So let's go on and move here. I want to go through some financial categories: assets, liabilities, income, and expenses. I will keep this relatively simple. If you look at assets category, let me give you two very simple definitions. Assets either go up in value or they make you money. It's both. That's the way I would define it. It increases in value and or it should generate you income. Okay? Liabilities are just the opposite of that. They will decrease, they will go down in value, and or they will generate expenses. They will cost you money. And I gave you a few examples of each of those, assets and liabilities. Examples of assets: real estate, stocks, bonds, cryptocurrency, businesses, notes. Notes, I meant like lending notes, where you lend out money, where you lend money and you get a certain amount of fixed interest income on different notes. Your goal with assets should be to grow this category as much as possible. Yes? Liabilities is just the opposite. There are necessary liabilities in your life, but examples of them are vehicles, the car that you drive. Anybody know? Is that an asset or a liability? Liability. Why? Because it goes down in value. The second you drive your car off the dealer's lot, you just lost 25 to 30% of the value. If you were to sell it the same day, you would get a lot less money for it. Make sense? You wait another 5-10 years, unless it's a Toyota Camry, which can run until Kingdom comes. Other than that, most of them will sharply decline in value. And the fact is, the more expensive the car, usually the faster it depreciates. Yeah? That's a good example of a liability. You need clothes, you need cars, you need clothes. Technology, yeah, you need some of that. Your phone, your tablet, your computer, whatever those. How many of you know Apple comes out with a new iPhone every year? Yeah. Is it every year? Yep. It is every year, right? I think like every fall or whatever. I mean, they don't really do anything. Their R&D department died with Steve Jobs, but they just like make little tweaks and they push out a new thing, and we keep buying the new phones every couple of years or whatever. There's always new technology, but how many of you know that your phone is very quickly outdated by a new version the very next year? Technology goes down in value, right? Housing, we'll talk about this in a second. Housing and living in housing costs you money, right? It generates expenses. And vacations, any and all of this. Basically, I would say liabilities are lifestyle items that will hurt your net worth over the long run. There are necessary components, like we said, to live, you have liabilities. It costs money to live. There's a necessary component to this. You want to try and minimize this as much as possible. Here's a little bit of an interesting question for you. Talking about assets and liabilities, let's pause here. Is your primary residence an asset or a liability? Okay, anybody brave enough? Joy, go ahead. Asset, why?
Because my house is growing, the value of my house is growing since the first time we bought it.
Okay, good take. I heard a very opposite take from somebody you know in the front here. He says, you say an asset, it goes up in value. If you didn't hear that, asset goes up in value. Huh? She said, Dad, I thought the house was going up in value. What's going on? You see, this is the difference between, to her, she's like, oh, it's an asset, it's going up in value. Who's getting the bills? He says it's a liability, you know? Who's paying the rent, the mortgage, or whatever? It's Dad. Okay, what does Dad say? Asset or liability?
Liability.
Liability, why is that?
You gotta pay the mortgage, pay the insurance.
You gotta pay mortgage, you gotta pay insurance. Taxes? Okay, so which one is it? I saw another hand there. Garen, go ahead.
It's both.
It's both, right on the money. Let me answer this for you. Your primary residence, which is just a fancy word for saying the house that you live in, that you own, right? It's not one that you rent. Your primary residence is both. It's an asset and a liability. We'll talk, we'll dive into more of this in a little bit here. But it's an asset and a liability. In that, yes, both of what we heard here was correct. It is typically, at least if you're in California, it's going up in value. But if you look at the other definition, does it generate income? Unless you're renting out rooms or whatever, if it's just you and your family, it's actually on the liability category. It generates expenses. Dad here is right. He's paying the bill for the mortgage, the rent, whatever, taxes, insurance, utilities, right? When the daughter is running the AC during the summer and he gets the bill, he sees a liability. It's a big L, like L in liability, all right? It's both. But if you are buying a primary residence in California, and this is why we're doing this, is because your primary residence, especially in a market like Southern California, the asset portion of that, out of assets and liabilities, the asset will far outpace the liability and the expense that you will incur owning a primary residence. Does that make sense? Okay, income and expenses, I won't spend too much time here. It's very simple, money in versus money out, right? Examples, your salary, 1099, independent contractor income. I know a lot of you own your own businesses. You'll get money from a sole proprietorship, an LLC, or whatever it is. If you're selling your stocks, your businesses, or whatever, selling properties, you get capital gains, rental income, etc. Expenses, I don't have to explain too much of this. I do want to roll through talking about expenses. I do want to bring this up later as we're going through an example. I want to show you the impact of leasing or financing a vehicle and why cars are big killers in personal finance. It is a liability and it is an expense where you are spending a lot of money on something. I will show you the impact that the average car payment has on your ability to buy a home. It's quite staggering. Okay, we'll move on. Advantages of ownership. And this is why I would say owning real estate is a good thing. There's a number of different things. Number one is discipline. Here's what I would say here, is that you will never voluntarily give up on your own home. And this is the way I would want to contrast, I guess, juxtapose between the two things. If you have an investment, how many of you understand that? Anybody have a 401k, IRA, retirement account, anything like that? Did you know that if you go to a lot of employers, a lot of companies, in retirement accounts, a lot of companies do matching, yes? I've talked to business owners where they said, out of my entire workforce, we offer either 50%, 75%, 80%, 100%, whatever, matching of some kind for retirement accounts. And he said maybe something like only 45 to 50% of people actually fund their retirement accounts, even though they're being matched and offered free money from their company. Does that make sense? It's kind of staggering, but do you know why? Because when the month to month comes, people say, I need the money here, now, today, and I'm not investing it in my future. It's difficult. A lot of people are living paycheck to paycheck, month to month, and that is why I would say real estate and your primary residence in particular is an asset class that is unlike any other, where it marries the investment piece of an asset as well as the emotional component of where you live at home. Because how many of you would willingly, with the same level of I guess let me put it this way. If anything happens and I need money, I will sell my investments far before I will give up on the home that shelters my wife and children. Does that make sense? From an emotional component, I am not kicking my wife and children out on the street simply because I need money. How many of you know if you're in a home and the bank is about to foreclose on your property and they're about to take your home away from you and your family has nowhere to stay, you are going to find a way to make it work. You're going to find a way to pay your mortgage, right? You'll take a job, you'll take an extra job, you'll take a second job, a third job, you'll start driving for Uber Eats, whatever it is. You'll make it work somehow to pay that bill because your family is not going to be out on the street. There is no other asset class that will have the emotional component tied to it that investing in a primary residence will have. When you buy your house, you are forced to invest. You are forced to pay your mortgage every month because it is both your investment and your rent tied together in the same place, right? Okay, let's move on. Appreciation. California real estate has historically doubled every 15 to 20 years. I did this exercise a little while ago. My parents came here in the early 1980s. They bought a house in Diamond Bar, about 10, 12 minutes from here. I forget, my parents are here. Do you remember how much did you buy the house for back in 1982, 3? 85. $175,000. Wow, everybody's like, oh man. I know, everybody's jealous. Everybody's jealous until you hear this. Dad, what was the interest rate when you bought in 1985? 11%. Stop your complaining. We're at 6-something under 7% right now. You do not want 11% interest. We'll talk about interest rates in a second. It was even higher than 11%. I looked at the value of that home. It was 175 or so in the 1980s when they bought it. By the time they sold it in 2011, they sold it for 600-ish, 600 something. That means it had more than tripled in value in about 20 years, right? And now it has been, 2011, how long has it been? 14 years. 14 years, right? Yeah, 14 years. It's doubled again. I looked at the Redfin Zillow estimate. It's about 1.2, 1.3. Real estate in Southern California is it's unmatched. You will not lose. You will never lose playing the long game in real estate. Can it go up and down in value? Absolutely. It can definitely, the market can correct. It can go down in value. But even in the worst, this is talking about stability as well. So in the worst economic crisis that we have seen in terms of housing in 2008 to 2010, maybe we saw a 40% dip in value. Maybe in certain areas. But in the long run, it just keeps going. It just keeps on going, and it will double every 15 to 20 years. Okay, leverage. No other asset class offers the amount of leverage available for buying real estate. Imagine going into Chipotle, and let's say a burrito is $10. I think it's more than that now. I haven't been to Chipotle in years. My wife doesn't like it. I haven't bought Chipotle since we got married. It's crazy. Nah, maybe like 2 or 3 times, but I don't know why. Sharon doesn't like Chipotle. Anyways, imagine going to Chipotle if it's a $10 burrito, and you say to the person, I want this, you want black beans or what pinto beans? Okay, you get this. I want the beef, I want this, You get all the way to the end of the line, and they say, that'll be $10. And you say to the man, I have 50 cents. I'm going to give you 50 cents, and over the next 30 years, I'm going to make little payments on this burrito, but I want the burrito now. The cashier's going to look at you like you're crazy. This is essentially the setup that you have with real estate. you come in with 5% of the money, 10% of the money, maybe 20% of the money for a product that you get to consume now, that you have now, your family will live in now, and you pay 5, 10, 20%, whatever, and the rest of it will be over the life of 30 years. And the bank says, yes, let me fund that burrito. You can enjoy it today, but I will pay for the rest of it, and you just pay me back slowly over 30 years. There is nothing else. That sounds crazy, right? You should not do it. I know, what's that, Klarna and DoorDash just released, anybody hear about that? There's like installment payments for DoorDash. Please, Gen Z, please stop delivering your food, okay? Please stop spending money on DoorDash. When my wife was pregnant with our kids, I looked at DoorDash so many times. It would be 10, 10:30, and Sharon would tell me, I want In-N-Out. I want animal fries. I said, yes, I'm a good husband. I said, yes, I'm gonna get myself a burger while you get your animal fries. And I looked at it on DoorDash. It's like a 30, 40% markup. It's crazy. Please stop delivering your food. Just go out and get. I looked at it so many times, and I looked at it, I was like, I can't do it. I can't justify. I think like millennials were the last ones that did not have food delivered. Gen Z, it's just so normal. It's just like very normal for you. Like, you know what? Boop, it gets delivered right to you. It's very convenient. Go out, drive the 5, 10 minutes, go grab your food, save money for your house, okay? Tax benefits. I'm gonna breeze through this. Mortgage interest rate deductions and capital gains tax sheltering. You can sell your house, make up to 500 grand, I think it might be increasing, make up to $500,000 between husband and wife, and you can get $500,000 of capital gains, appreciation that you make on the house when you sell your primary residence, and you take $500,000 of profit tax-free. Is that good? $500,000. It's increasing every year. Mortgage interest deductions. The IRS code allows you to write off your mortgage interest that you are paying on your loan. As in, whatever you pay, if you get a W-2, you pay a certain amount of taxes. If you pay mortgage interest as a homeowner, you will get a refund check for the money that you paid in interest. That make sense? The IRS code, don't think of it as gaming the system. The IRS knew this and understood this. They are specifically shaping and directing consumer behavior to go in certain directions, the path of least resistance. They are saying that if I give a tax break for homeowners, more people will buy homes, and they know it is good for the United States economy if they incentivize you to buy your house. You get a deduction, you get a tax break if you do this stuff. It's just the fact that not everybody knows this, and not everybody takes advantage of this. Do you know how much you get before Trump, if Trump doesn't change it, do you know how much percent deduction, tax deduction you get for your rent? Zero. You don't get any deductions for paying rent. It might change, they're looking into some of those things, but right now it definitely favors homeowners. Finally, stability. I say unlike stocks or crypto, the real estate market changes very slowly. It is not going to move up and down that much. Like we said, maybe it can correct 10%, maybe 15, maybe even 20 would be really bad already. But even if it corrects all that much, it doesn't go to zero. How many of you know if you buy crypto, you buy any meme coins or whatever, it can go to zero like that. If you invest, not saying that all stocks are bad, but if you invest in a company goes bankrupt, you can lose 100% of your money. You will never lose 100% of real estate, money invested in real estate. Because even if the whole house burns down, what do you have left? The land. And the land in California is what's actually valuable. Your house is going down in value, your land just keeps going up. That's actually what's valuable. If you bulldoze the thing, you can build a new one. Anyways, let's go on. Language of real estate. Everybody doing all right? Yes. That was the easy stuff. We're gonna get into the technical stuff now. Make sure you look at your notes. I'm gonna move quick. I'll try and pause for questions here. A mortgage. What is a mortgage? I'm putting all of this in my own layman's terms. Mortgage is just money that is borrowed to buy a house. When you buy a house, unless you buy your house all cash, you have 100% of the money, you have all $1 million or $800,000 in cash, which most of us do not have access to, at least at this point in our lives. You're going to use a mortgage. You're going to borrow money from a bank, from a mortgage lender. A mortgage broker is going to get you a loan or a mortgage, and you're going to borrow money to buy the house. I want to explain something called LTV. Everybody say LTV. What does it stand for? Loan to value. It is a ratio, let me explain these other components before we understand loan to value and understand that ratio. Number one, your purchase price. Purchase price is very simple, right? It's the price that you purchased the house for. What did you buy it for? $800,000, $900,000, $1 million, $700,000, $600,000, whatever. It's your purchase price. Your down payment is how much of your money you put into the purchase. So when I talk about 5%, 10%, 20%, that's your down payment, right? If you come up with 10%, how much is the bank coming up with? The reciprocal, right? 100 minus 10, 90, 90%. If you do 20%, how much is the bank coming up with? 80%. There you go. So that's how you get your LTV, because finally your loan amount is, in addition to how much you put into the purchase of the house, it's just your purchase price minus your down payment equals your loan amount. How much the bank just has to fund how much you don't have, right? You put in 100 grand, let's go through this example. $1 million. I don't expect all of you to buy $1 million house. It's just very easy numbers, so let's use this as the example. A purchase price of $1 million. If I put 10% down as my down payment, $100,000, the loan amount is? The loan to value, or the ratio is? 90%. So when I say loan to value, you understand what that's talking about, right? It's loan divided by value. 900,000 divided by million, 90%. Good? Let's move on. I want to give you a real example. I'm going to be real transparent with you. These are the numbers on my house. My wife and I moved into the city of Walnut. We bought a house in 2018. We bought it for roughly $750,000. We put a 20% down payment, $150,000, and the loan amount was $600,000. It's a 20 and 80 real life example like we just talked about. Instead of 10 and 90, it's 20 and 80, right? Loan to value, you still see that, 80%, right? Here's what I want to explain as well. Does anybody understand what equity is? What is equity? Anybody? Give me like a real simple definition. Equity, is it?
The increased value of the house.
Increased value of the house. Well, when I first start out, even if it hasn't increased yet, it's just how much of a stake or ownership I have. My equity is just my piece. So think of it, there, I gave you a little bar chart here. If I have a $750,000 house, I put 20% in, I have $150,000. What is my total equity from day one? Is that 20%? It's $150,000, right? Here's again, I'm not doing this to brag, I want to show you the reality of real estate and how powerful of a vehicle it is without me doing all too much. Look at this next slide. If I were to look at the value today, I haven't done a real hard comp analysis on this, but I look around, other houses in our area are selling for like 1.1, maybe 1.15. I could probably let it go for 1.15. That's an increase of anybody? What's the math on that? It's increased 400 grand in the last six and a half years. That's a lot of money. That's a lot of money. And I will tell you this, I don't feel any richer. That's the good thing about real estate. When I talk about the discipline of it, what am I doing? I'm just paying my mortgage. I'm just paying the same amount every month so that my wife and children and I have a place to live. And all the while, it is just increasing and increasing, and my lifestyle doesn't change. I don't feel like I'm $400,000 richer, right? What did I do? I scrapped and I saved. We worked as hard as we could to make that number work. It was beyond our capacity at the time, and we did, like $750 sounds like a great deal now, but back then it was at the top of the market. I think I overpaid for that house. But if I look at it now, it's like, I don't care that I overpaid. Look at the price now. It was probably like 20, 30 grand too much. It was probably worth like closer to 715, 720. I saw it listed at 750. I just took it. That was a whole testimony. We got the keys to our house 10 days before we got married. And we moved in right when we got married. It was a crazy story. All of those things. Anyways, my point being, it's increased a lot, yes? But look at the piece here. Look at what is my total equity on the property. It is my original equity of $150,000, and as it increases 400, how much of that do I get to keep? All of it. I know you guys are doing the math. You're adding the 150 plus the 400, 550, right? Now let's do anybody, I got my phone. Somebody help me do this calculation. Marcus, can you pull out your calculator? Let's do this. It was 20% earlier, right? And the bank had 600 out of the 750, which was 80%. Can you look at the value now? If I have 550 out of 1.15, so 550 out of 1150, what is that? I think it's 40-something%, right?
47.8%.
My equity just went from 20% to, what did you say, 47?
47.8.
47.8%. Because here's the powerful thing in terms of equity and the loan to value. Look at how much of a stake the bank has in my property. When I bought it, I owed them $600,000. As it increases in value, you know how much I owe them? The same amount. Their ownership does not scale with the appreciation of my property. When the property goes up in value, I still owe them $600,000. At the end, okay, it goes down a little bit, amortization, all that. We'll get into that in a little bit. But roughly, I still owe them the same amount of money. Anything that goes up in value is mine. Anything that goes up on your primary residence is yours to keep. And here's the guy lending you the money to get the Chipotle burrito. And all the while, the Chipotle burrito keeps growing. And what do you do with the Chipotle burrito? Are you spoon feeding the guy at the bank? No, you eat the Chipotle burrito. This is your burrito, man. Okay, does that make sense to everyone? Any questions so far? Equity, we understand. Loan to value. Let's move forward. This is a very common term, PITI. When people are saying that they are paying their mortgage, what is it that you pay every month? You are paying PITI. I pity. No, anyways. I do not pity you, because it's a good thing. You're investing in a good thing. PITI stands for principal, interest, taxes, and insurance. Again, I'm going to move pretty quickly through this. Principal is just the amount of money that you are paying in that payment to the bank. There's two components to the payment to the bank. There's the principal and the interest. The principal is you paying off that $600,000. That $600,000 does this little neat trick called amortization. It's a fancy word for saying that $600,000 eventually over the life of a 30-year mortgage will go to zero. At the end of the day, I will pay off all of that $600,000 balance if I just keep paying the same amount that they have set every single month. I keep paying my mortgage, it will eventually go to zero. How much do I owe at the end of 30 years? Absolutely nothing. That's amortization for you because I'm paying down the principal. And the way it works, it's you pay more interest in the beginning, and then you pay a little bit of principal in the beginning, and then it starts to switch over. You pay less and less interest, and you pay more and more principal, and you're eventually going down and down and down until you pay off the loan, okay? Taxes is another thing that's kind of built into this monthly payment. Your property tax, if you're in California, most Southern California cities, counties, and states, cities and counties, you will pay about 1.1% of your property's assessed value. This is an important note. California has a wonderful, wonderful rule, unlike Texas and other areas, that your property's assessed value, the property tax's assessed value, or the value that they attach and upon which they base the taxes, property taxes for, does not change or does not get reassessed or updated until you sell the property. So if I bought, let's use my dad's example. If they bought that house in 1985 for less than 200 grand, and 20, 30, 40 years they held on to that house, the property taxes basically stay at the same assessed value as the last transaction. So there are people, I know a lot of people who are generational owners of assets and properties in California where you just hang on to the property and you pay the original property, not original, it goes up by like 2 to 3% every year, right? But it's capped. Even if your property spikes 20% in value, 30% in value, the property tax can only increase a couple percent every year. So you are basically, once you lock in and buy a house, you are locked in and keep that low property tax rate, and it will slowly increase over the years, but your value could be at $1 million, $2 million. I know people who own real estate in California, and they do not want to sell. They would rather upgrade and do all this stuff to their house. They're like, I ain't moving. Why? Because of property tax. I'm only paying a couple grand a year. If I move to the same value that my house is, I bought it down here, so my taxes are based on here, but the value is way up here. If I were to move and buy the same kind of house in Orange County or whatever, I'd be paying like 5 times the property tax. It's an awesome, awesome thing. Very good incentive. Finally, insurance. If you get you will need homeowner insurance. Most of that in California is for fire hazard. Anybody seen the need for fire insurance in California recently? Yes, it is very important. God bless everybody who's affected by those fires. PMI. Here's something. Private mortgage insurance can be built in. HOA and PMI are two things that can also be built in to the monthly payment. Your private mortgage insurance is if this is on a conventional loan. I forgot. There's another one. Mortgage insurance premium. Is that right, Mark? Mortgage insurance premium is on a FHA loan versus PMI is on a conventional. If you put less than 20% down, you pay a little bit more of a fee. We'll talk about how that's calculated. You pay a little bit more. It's like an additional insurance that gets built into your monthly payment. If you buy a condo, a townhouse, or something with an association, you might pay also an HOA fee. If you ask me, I hate HOAs. I do not like HOAs. Why? It's just money that you're paying, and it increases. It makes it more difficult for you to afford these things, and where you just pay money to the HOA, and it just makes your monthly payment more expensive. Any questions here? You good? All right, crunching all the information. It's good. We'll keep going. Let's talk about interest rates. Oh, we got a question. Yes, sir. What is HOA? I'm sorry, Homeowners Association. HOA is homeowners association. Basically, think of like shared facilities. If I live in an apartment complex or a condo or a townhouse and we have like a playground or like a community pool or something like that, if there's community amenities and shared things, you're probably going to pay an HOA fee. Yes, sir?
You mentioned FHA before?
FHA, don't worry, we'll talk about the different types of mortgages. That is Federal Housing Administration. I'm talking about a certain type of loan that you can apply for. We'll get to all those mortgages in a little bit. Yeah? Anyone else? We're good? Okay, let's talk about interest rates. Interest is just the cost of borrowing money. I think this is very simple. Everybody knows what interest is, right? When you get your mortgage, you will pay a certain amount of interest. And overall, this number or this figure will fluctuate over time as a macroeconomic policy tool. The Federal Reserve will set a certain federal funds rate, and most of the mortgage rates and the industry will base it. That's not 100% correlated, but more or less it will go up and down with a lot of this. If you look at today's interest rate, I just pulled this up this morning, the 30-year fixed rate mortgage is at what number? 6.65%. And here is why Gen Z gets mad at everybody else who bought houses in 2020 and before, or at least in the last few years. Look at what was the 2021 interest rate for a 30-year fixed rate mortgage? 2.66%. Hurts your feelings a little bit, doesn't it? You're like, man, it's so easy. If only I was a little bit older, or if only I had bought in that time, or this and that. Let's go to the next slide. I will tell you why you do not want to wish for different times. Look at what the interest rate in 1981, a few years before my parents bought that house, look at the peak of that interest rate. The 30-year fixed rate mortgage was 18.39%. Anybody saying, you know what, 6.65 isn't that bad? We look at 2.6, we look at, those low numbers. There's a lot of people who are locked in at 2 something, 3, 4, 5%, and those are good rates. We were at historic lows. Why? Because like I said, it's a macroeconomic tool. It's a policy tool that they use to adjust economic behavior. And so after the recession, 2008 until 2010, rates were just at a rock bottom. It was like historic lows for a long time. And then things started to change. What happened? Inflation came in. I'm not gonna talk about whose fault that was or how it happened or whatever. But inflation came in, and one of the things that they have to do as a lever to adjust that is increase the interest rates to cool down the economy so that inflation doesn't go too rampant and you can afford your eggs still. But 6.65 is not that bad relative to 18.39. Yes? Okay, so let's not complain about interest rates. The good thing with interest rates is that, again, they change. When you lock in now, if they go up, good for you. When they go down, refinance. Lock into that lower interest rate. I always tell people, when you're looking for your house or your primary residence, do not try to time the market and do not try to time the interest rates. Buy when you need it. Buy when the situation arises and your family and whatever you're ready, and you can get a lower interest rate when the rates change. The markets will change, and if it goes down, good. If it goes up, you're gonna wish that you bought. I don't want you guys to miss out if it goes up in another year or two. I don't think it will, but still, you can get it now and refinance when it goes down. That's what I did. I got in at a higher rate, like 1.5% to 2% higher. It was still good, but it got even better. And I just refinanced when it went down. Anyways, that's interest rates. Let's talk about, this is a very important component. Got a question? Yes?
We got a question. What does refinancing mean?
Refinance means to basically start over that new loan process. You have a 30-year fixed rate mortgage at the purchase of the property. You can basically get another loan, and you're restarting that whole cycle at a new rate. You pay the closing costs and all of those things again. Basically, think of this whole timeline. It gets shifted because you start that whole process again. It's probably not the greatest explanation. I forgot to mention, but I have a colleague of mine who I've worked with a little bit here. Mark, would you just wave to the group here? I've got Mark, this good-looking man over here. Well, I'll bring him. I'll talk about him. Have his info up on the presentation a little bit when we talk about mortgages. He is a mortgage broker and a lender. I will be honest with you. I am not the expert in mortgages. Okay, like I said, we work in investment real estate. We buy a lot of things with cash. We don't borrow money in the traditional ways that most home buyers do. So I brought the expert. This man drove all the way from Las Vegas to be here with you today. So please, thank you so much, Mark, for being here. Again, I'll talk about him more in a little bit when we get to that portion of the presentation, but he drove all the way here. Again, I'm not trying to sell you anything. He's a resource for you to help answer all your questions in ways and to levels and nuances and details in a way that I cannot. So I want to make sure that we had somebody to represent. He's awesome. Thank you so much for being here. Okay, let's talk about DTI. If you forget everything else that I talk about today, I want you to take DTI home with you, okay? Pay attention for the next couple minutes. This is super, super important. DTI is what right there? Your debt to income ratio. Basically, this is the magic number or calculation that your mortgage lender, that when you bring all of your information and all the money that you make, your tax returns, your W-2 or whatever it is, and you dump it all in Mark's lap, he's going to crunch all of the numbers, and this is the calculation that he's going to use to determine whether or not you can afford a house. This is why this is so important, because it will take your monthly debt. So take your debt, you see that debt per month divided by income per month. And then you can just do some algebra, you move things around and whatever. But your debt includes anything that you make payments on. This is why your car payments, your car lease, any student loans, any credit card payments, consumer debt, I hope you don't have that. But any of those things, they all get lumped in here. They're all treated the same way. Whether it's your mortgage payment for your house or consumer debt because you bought too many burritos and put it on your credit card, it will all go in the same number here, and it will affect and it will impact negatively the ability for you to purchase a home, because it will impact this number and this calculation right here, DTI. Let's move on. I want to give you an example. If I make $120,000 a year, if you make $120,000 a year, you take that, divided by 12, you get $10,000 a month, yes? You can support at a 45% debt to income ratio. We'll talk about how it ranges. It can go 45, 50% depending on the type of loan and different regulations and all those things. Let's use a little bit more of a conservative estimate at 45%. At 45%, if I make household income between you, husband and wife, whatever, a whole household makes $120,000 a year, $10,000 a month, you can support up to $4,500 of debt in a month. Does that make sense? If I make if that same household makes $150,000 a year, that same 45% calculation bumps up to $5,625 a month. We'll run through that in an example. But obviously, the more income, the more debt you can support. That's what I want you to understand. There is a limit. If I make $10,000 a month, $120,000 a year, and Mark is running all my calculations, and the house that I'm trying to purchase between the down payment amount and the interest rate and taxes and insurance, all of that stuff comes out to $4,501, I get rejected. Mark will probably work with you a little bit more. He'll find ways to squeeze some things, maybe you pay off this or work that, whatever, and find a way to get it under that target. But this is basically the cut and dry black and white formula of whether or not you can afford a house is this number right here, DTI. Let me pause here. I know we've got a couple of questions. Hans, let me go to you. Yes, sir.
Is it calculated based on gross?
Gross. Is it based on gross? Yes, it is. It is. Yeah, I see Mark. Yes. Thank you, Mark. I'm so glad he's here, man. Yes, it is. It is based on your gross income. That is a different scenario. It is a different scenario, or it gets a little bit more nuanced if you own your own business. I'll talk about that in a little bit. But if you're W-2, yes, it's your gross income. Yes?
Is your credit a part of that?
Is your credit a part of this? It's not technically a part of your DTI calculation, but is your FICO score, your credit, a big, important part of applying for a mortgage? Absolutely. 120%. It is very, very important. You'll get better rates. You'll get lower closing costs. A lot of different advantages for having a better FICO score. And I see Mark's hand going up. Maybe I said something wrong. Mark, go ahead.
Just to add to that, and potentially a higher DTI, because a person with a higher credit
Yes.
score might qualify at a 50% debt ratio.
I saw that. I researched that this morning. I was talking to one of my guys, and he said, no, I think you can go 50% on a conventional if you have a strong credit score, right? I literally Googled that. So the 45 is the standard calculation for conventional, but like Mark is saying, if you have a strong FICO score, they'll bump that up and allow you to take on a little bit more debt. So even if you make $120,000 a year, they say, okay, I'll let you take up to $5,000 worth of debt instead of $4,500. You can buy a little bit more house, right? Afford a higher payment. Garen, I saw your hand up earlier. You go. Already answered. Okay, good. Let's move forward. A lot of stuff here. Oh yes, Debbie.
I was just wondering, because a conventional loan and a fixed loan, because those are two different loans, right?
Conventional and a fixed.
Right?
I don't think we're comparing apples to apples.
Like, say, for instance, isn't there a fixed loan that's like 15 years or 30 years that's fixed?
Yes.
The conventional loan, isn't it where you buy conventional and it goes up and down?
No. So what you're thinking of is an ARM, adjustable rate mortgage, versus a fixed rate. So those are the two things comparing. Conventional is just a loan program. You have conventional, you have FHA, you have VA, USDA, all sorts of different loan programs from different sponsors or whatever that are doing those. You're talking about a fixed rate where you set your interest rate 6.65. It's never going to change for 30 years. Adjustable rate is kind of a dangerous product. It can be advantageous in certain scenarios where it will go up and down based on the current market rates. So if you start where I did in 2018, it was like 3.5%, 4%. I'm not happy when it's going up to almost 7, 8%, and then it's going down back to 6-something%. I'm in a worse situation than I was when I started. That's an adjustable rate mortgage. Again, if we get to mortgages, Mark can probably shed some more light on there. Let me move forward. We're kind of running a little bit behind schedule here. I want to go through escrow fundamentals. My goodness, we have a lot of information here. Escrow is just a neutral third party that kind of brings everybody together. It's called opening and closing escrow. When you open is when you're starting the transaction. By the time you close escrow, you will now be the new owner of the property. It's called opening and closing escrow. Escrow company, you pay them a fee, and they just bring all the different parties together. They bring the buyer, the seller, their agents, the title company, the termite guy, the repairs, whatever. All these guys all come together. Escrow helps handle a lot of that. Title insurance is similar to escrow. You pay a fee. It's a title company, a title officer will give you a title insurance policy. I won't go into too much detail. It is a non-negotiable. You need to pay for title insurance, okay? This is basically to prevent crazy uncle from showing up and saying, hey, the seller sold you the home, but I actually own 30% of the home. You got to come up with 300 grand more. When that happens, and I know it sounds crazy, but I have actually been there. I have been through litigation because crazy uncle showed up. I don't think he was an uncle, but some crazy guy showed up knocking on the doors of a buyer who just bought the house, knocking on their door saying, no, I own part of this property. Who comes in to guarantee the ownership for the new buyer? Title insurance. Who will go to court for you and make sure that you don't have to pay all those legal fees when crazy uncle comes knocking? Title company, title insurance. Okay, EMD is earnest money deposit. Did I say Ernie? Earnest money deposit. It's also known as your initial deposit or your good faith deposit. Basically, it's typically 3%, depends on how you write up the contract. It is funds to open escrow. If you're putting 10% down, you take 3 of it, you pay it at the beginning of escrow. The remaining 7% you'll pay at the end or the close of escrow, right at funding before you close the actual deal. But you'll pay your initial deposit in the beginning. Inspections. You will go on and do inspections to make sure the physical condition of the property is in acceptable shape. You want to get your general home inspection. It'll cover a lot of these different areas. You definitely want to get a termite inspection. There are some more accessory ones that if you find things in your general inspection, you'll want to get a foundation, a sewer, a roof, a chimney. You can get all of these specific inspections done. I would start with the general home inspection and a termite inspection. Just some quick notes for you. Again, a lot of this stuff, when you work with a licensed real estate agent and a realtor to work with you, again, not me. When you work with your real estate agent, they will walk you through a lot of this stuff. I just want you guys to have an understanding of it. Request for repairs. After you do your inspections, if there's anything that's glaringly wrong with the property and not enough for you to want to back out of the transaction, but you say to the seller, hey, I want you to please fix this before I move in with my family because it's not safe, it's a hazard, etc., or you just want to ask for it, you can request whatever you want. You might get rejected. The seller has no obligation to accept or do any of those things, but it's part of the transaction and the deal where the buyer can submit a request for repairs. And basically, the seller will either credit, repair, or reject whatever you're requesting. Contingencies, I would say this, they're like checkpoints to pass in escrow for you to pass a certain checkpoint or gate to move forward with the process with escrow and say, I have my inspections, they're technically all 17 days. We'll go through the timeline in a second, but your inspection, your appraisal, and your loan are the 3 things. Oh, I didn't put appraisal in there. Inspection, again, you're just checking the physical condition of the property, right? Appraisal is the bank will send somebody, your mortgage lender will send somebody to appraise or calculate the value of the property and make sure that you're paying the right price for the property, you're not overpaying. I don't think they'll care if you underpay. But they're not going to lend you more than what it is worth. That's your appraisal. And finally, your loan. These are just checkpoints, and make sure that you make sure you have to get all of these things cleared with your lender, with your with the inspectors and all of these parties to make sure that you can move forward in the process. Finally, your loan documents. You'd be working with your lender, and basically you're signing paperwork to officially put the loan onto paper and into contract. You are officially starting your loan once you sign loan documents. Let's move forward. Some of the costs of escrow. Again, I'm going to move very quickly through this. You can see the breakdown there. There's a few thousand on each of those. Commissions. A lot of this has been fluctuating in the last 6 to 9 months. A lot of National Association of Realtors and a lot of the regulation around this has changed quite a bit. But commissions, fortunately for you, if you're on the home buying side instead of the list side or sell side, you don't typically pay commissions. Now, this is where it has changed. In previous years, it was the seller paying 5%, about 2.5% to each side, maybe 4%, 2 to each side. And basically, the seller would pay both his own agent and then the buyer's agent to incentivize buyers to come in and be able to have an agent, make a commission on bringing their buyer to the table. Technically, some of that has changed now. It is now known as a concession. It is like the seller, it is the buyer's obligation to pay their real estate agent, but most sellers are going to give what's known as a concession or an allowance, and they'll let you know up front, I'm giving a 2.5% or a 2% or whatever percent concession towards your obligation as a buyer to pay your own real estate agent. Does that make sense? So now it's changed. That literally changed in the last 6 months of 2024. It's very different from the last 40 years of real estate. So that's, again, bring it up to your real estate agent. That's a very important thing to iron out because it is your responsibility as the buyer, but the cost should be absorbed by the seller. Closing costs. The majority of these, again, I won't go into too much detail. A lot of these things have relatively fixed costs. I would prepare for 1.5% to 2% of your purchase price of the home be set aside for closing costs in addition to the down payment. It can go up. I've seen it go a little bit higher. Some of the lender fees, there are costs and things that are associated with putting a loan together. Depending on whether or not you want to get a lower interest rate and do some of those things, those points, a point is just 1 point or 1%. So think $600,000 of a purchase. What is 1 point going to be? $6,000. 1 point is equal to 1% as an upfront cost or fee. So when it says half a point to 3 points, 3 points on a 600,000 is 18 grand. It's a lot of money. So be careful of the fees. You want to make sure you're packaging it right. But believe it or not, sometimes paying the points up front to buy down the interest rate or something can actually save you money in the long term. And it might actually be advantageous. Work with the lender to be more specific about those. Let's look at the timeline. Here's your timeline. Your standard escrow will be anywhere between 30 to 45 days. 30 is kind of your golden standard here. Day one, you open escrow. Within 72 hours, you need to deposit your earnest money deposit, your initial deposit. You'll go out and do some of your inspections. After your inspections, do all of that we talked about. You'll submit a request for repairs. All the while, you are working on your loan underwriting. Mark is going to be working hard for you on the side, doing all of these things, requesting all of these documents. You're submitting all your paperwork, going back and forth, and doing inspections. Submit your request for repairs. You'll want to remove your inspection, your appraisal, and loan contingencies by day 17. That is the standard day. You can accelerate some of those and move them up to day 10, 12, 14, whatever, to make it a more attractive offer. And hopefully, if you submit those requests, the seller will do some repairs. You'll sign the loan documents, and then you'll fund for the deal. Just put all the money on the day before you close, and then finally, you will close escrow ideally on day 30. Let me pause here. We have even more to get through. We're going to talk about mortgages in a second. And don't worry, we'll have a bathroom and coffee break after that. Everybody good? Any questions I can answer here? No? Let's move on to the next slide. Okay, requirements for mortgages. I want to touch on some of this here. Depending on your sources of income, you will have different requirements for what you need to submit to your lender. Here are some very basic, I talked to Mark beforehand, there is like a list of 40 or 50 actual requirements. It's a very extensive list. Here are some like non-negotiables that I think almost everyone will have, again, depending on your source of income and how you make money, but there's a much, much longer list. Talk to a lender to actually get the entire list because it depends on your situation. But if you work a W-2, if you work a 9 to 5 and get a salary, you will submit your pay stubs and you will submit your W-2 to your lender. Am I correct, Mark, in saying that you don't need to submit your 2 years of tax returns? That's what I mean by no returns. You don't need to submit your 2 years of tax returns to your lender if you have a W-2. You just submit the pay stubs and get all that associated with the W-2. I don't have to show them that. What's that?
Assuming you presently own no other real estate.
Assuming that you presently own no other real estate. Okay.
First-time buyer that's W-2,
First-time buyer, if you're W-2, boom. You just submit that, you're good to go. Again, you satisfy the rest of the requirements on the list. The other challenge here that I want to mention to a lot of you, I know a lot of you own your own businesses. You're either independent contractors, sole proprietorship, you have an LLC or whatever it is. I want you to be prepared for this. You need to submit your 2 years of tax returns in lieu of or instead of a W-2 to prove that you make income, right? For me, the way I had my source of income, I make a lot of it from 1099. That's how I qualified to be able to afford my mortgage, DTI calculation. All that was based on my 1099. Here is the challenge. We'll jump to the bottom here. Oh, it gets cut off a little bit on the screen. But on the bottom, you see the tax returns timeline. I put the little red triangle for where we are today. What is today's date? Anybody? March 30th, 2020, 2025. Do you know what we are 15, 16 days out from? Tax day, which means do you have your 2024 returns yet? For the most part, unless you finish your taxes early and submitted them, most of us don't. Some of us even apply for an extension. You'll go all the way to October 15th, right? You won't have your 2024 income for quite some time. You won't have the 2024 returns for quite some time. You know what that means for those of you who have 1099, sole proprietorship, your own business, LLC? That means I'm not looking at last year and the year before for 2 years of tax returns. That means I'm looking at 3 years ago and 2 years ago for how much you made back then. So I'm looking at not 2025, that's great, 2 years from now. I'm definitely not using 2025's income in terms of a 2-year tax return for 1099. I'm not even looking at 2024 yet because I don't even have my returns yet. I'm looking at how much money did I make in 2022 and 2023, and can I buy a home based on those 2 years of income? That is a big challenge. Because I know a lot of you, especially when you're younger, you are building up your careers, you are growing in income. A lot of those things are still on the way up. But can you afford a house based on how much money you were making 3 and 2 years ago? Maybe, maybe not. It's a lot more challenging. You're like, oh, I'm making good money now, but the business just started growing. When? A year ago. Oh, that means your 2 years and 3 years ago tax returns in 22 and 23 look very different from 24 and maybe even 25. This is what I'm talking about. For a lot of us, it will take 2 to 3 years. You want to prepare all of these things, and what are situations and steps that I can take now to prepare for things that I'm going to do 2, 3, 4, 5 years from now so that I'm primed and ready for that position. There's some other requirements. You'll need either 2-month bank statements. There's other loans that can ask for 12, 24 month of bank statements, depending again on the type of loan. Somebody asked this question, does your FICO score or your credit score matter when you're applying for a loan? Yes. Yes, and yes. It is important. Young people, if you do not, I know some of you are, I think we have a couple of 18-year-olds here in the room. If you don't have a credit card, and therefore you don't have a credit score, you need to get a credit score. Open up a credit card, set it on auto pay for full balance every single month, and pay off the entirety of your credit card every single month, and you will build a credit history. You need a history to build your FICO score and your credit score so that when the bank looks at you in a couple of years, they'll say, yes, this has been a person who has paid every month on time, and they've done all of these things to get in place. Yes?
What do you mean by minimize deductions under the 1099, the 2-year tax?
Oh my gosh, thank you. Yes, minimize your deductions. Okay. Here's those 2 bullet points. For those of you who are business owners, if you have an LLC, if you have a sole proprietorship, whatever, here's the thing. Your tax returns and your DTI, all of that calculation will be based, I think Hans asked about it, your gross income. If you own a business, it is going to be after all of your deductions, all of your business expenses. You know what happens after you deduct your business expenses? Does your income go up or down? Down. So you got the car, you write off the car, you write off the internet, you write off your phone, you write off this bill and that bill, and after all of those deductions, you're like, yeah, I'm paying less tax. You know what paying less tax means? The lender shows that you have less income to work with. So I would be very careful, for those of you who own your own business, do not go crazy on deducting every last thing under the sun, because I know you pay less tax, but they will look at your income as based on what you're paying taxes on. And this is another part. I know some of you own different types of businesses. If there are any cash payments that are not taxable income, if they are not reported, they do not exist to the bank. If you're making money with some, like whatever, other sources or whatever, or somebody is giving you money for little things that you sell or whatever, if it's not reported to the IRS, it does not exist to the lender when they're calculating your DTI. They're calculating your taxed income only. And your business expenses and deductions will drive that number down. So for the time being, don't deduct like crazy. Once you buy your house, deduct whatever you can. As much as the IRS allows and is legally allowable, deduct, okay? But before that, don't throw everything on there. Why? Because I need to boost this up so that 2 years from now, when they look at it, they're like, oh, he's making, 150, 120, whatever. I could deduct, maybe there's another 10 or 20, I could knock it down. But no, I need that number to be high, and I want to minimize my business expenses and deductions. Does that make sense? Yes. Thank you, Feifei, for pointing that out. Okay, let's move on. Important notes. Oh my gosh, there's so many important things here. Gift letters. Parents or family members can give you money to help you in for the down payment of your house. Very big portion, happens to a lot of people. You just need something that's called a gift letter. Talk to your lender about it, they can set you up. Be careful, and there are major transactions, I want to be careful. When the lender is qualifying you for the mortgage, they will look at every single thing on your bank statement. If 10 grand goes in and out of your account, they will flag it and they'll say, what is that? I want to know. If any weird amount of money goes in that is not a regular charge in your bank statement, they will flag it and they will want to know all the history. Mark and I have seen some interesting cases on this where if weird things happen, they will want to know and it can blow up your loan. You do not want that to happen. So don't do weird things with your money, okay? Don't be buying a car while you're in escrow. When you're about to qualify your home, do not go out and open new credit lines, new credit cards, and other things that are going to pull your credit and open up other ways of you spending money and accruing debt. You do not want additional debt. You want to have the highest available DTI and show the highest level of income and be able to support a larger amount of that debt for your mortgage. So you don't want to go out and get a new car at the same time that you're trying to get a house, okay? So don't do weird things with your spending. Don't open any new debt. Grants, there are things, first-time homebuyer grants, Cal HFA, again, Mark can talk more about this when you go out and ask him some questions. There are grants that straight up just give you money. If the property qualifies, if the individual qualifies for the property, for the grant, there are certain restrictions and all that. If you meet the requirements, you can just get money from the government, from different programs that are giving, $10, $20, $30, $40,000 out to first-time homebuyers and just homebuyers in general to be able to go out and purchase a home with a grant. Finally, you can apply with a lender. It is important. Apply with what's known as a soft credit pull. Somebody say soft credit pull. Soft credit pull. Do not pull a hard check on your credit. It will ding your score a little bit. You don't want anything to knock down your credit score. It's not going to be crazy. It'll be like 5, 10 points, a few points, but you want to keep that thing high. If you start talking to a bunch of lenders and you do it over a span of time, it will continuously ding your credit. Go to a lender and apply with what's called a soft credit pull. They should be able to pull all your information, do all of that without doing an actual thing that will lower your credit score. So that's how you should approach those things. I have one more slide. Then I got one more, and then we'll go to a break here. Here are a few different types of mortgages and a few different types of loans. You've got conventional, FHA. These are some of the things I was talking about. A couple of the alternative ones are DSCR. This is debt service coverage ratio. For those of you who are not looking to live in your property, but your first home purchase is going to be a rental property. You live with family, you live with, you're still young, live with your parents or whatever it is, or you want to rent and, buy a rental property instead while you rent a different place. DSCR, it might be an alternative loan for you, non-owner occupied only. There's other things called a bank statement loan where, again, they're taking a different approach on how to qualify you. The overwhelming majority of you, again, there's like 20, 30, I don't know. There's so many different programs, again, that a lender can talk to you about. But I would say the overwhelming majority of you will fall under either conventional or FHA loans. There's a lot of good flexibility in those. Conventional and FHA, I would say there's the big difference between those. There's a lower down payment threshold that is available in FHA. You can go lower on the down payment. Conventional is typically 5%. There's some nuance as dropping it down to 3%. Conventional, however, is going to be very credit score driven. The higher credit score that you have, the better your terms and things are going to be on your conventional. FHA is a little bit more tolerant for people who don't have as good of a credit score, but you will end up paying higher closing costs and other fees in the FHA. Something called MIP, Mortgage Insurance Premium, which is upfront 1.75 points. Points are expensive. Points can cost a lot, but again, if this is the only option or even a more advantageous option, it can still be good for you. Whereas on conventional, you have what's called private mortgage insurance, PMI, which is 0.58% points or 1.86% per year. And then that can be eliminated if you have a 20% higher down payment. You can even remove that once you have more than 20% equity in the property. Your DTI is also something that comes into calculation. There's a higher threshold for DTI on FHA at 50%. Conventional is typically about 40%. Like Mark mentioned, if you have a high credit score, it can be bumped up to 50%. Whew, good? I won't talk too much detail about DSCR and bank statement. Those are more alternative loans. I don't think too many of us are going to be using that. But if you have questions, again, please talk to Mark. And that is where we get to my next slide before the break. This handsome gentleman here is my dear friend and colleague, Mark, is it Shikani? Is that how I pronounce it? Shikani, good? Shikani, excuse me. Mark Shikani, I never pronounce his last name, just call him Mark. Mark is a loan officer at Mission Home Mortgage. Again, I do not get a referral fee. I do not make any money from you talking to Mark. I just want him to be a good resource. But this is what I would say is that talking to a lender is going to give you very specific information that we cannot give in a general setting like this. You are going to want to talk to him. He needs to know your source of income. He needs to know that your sources of debt and all these different things. You need to get very specific. So I would very much encourage you, whether it's Mark or a different lender, please talk to a lender before you get serious about buying a house. I would even talk to a lender before you talk to a real estate agent, because you're not ready until you qualify from all the finance pieces. You're not really ready to go start looking at houses until you talk to a guy like Mark. Anyways, Mark will be here during the break if you want to approach him with questions, and we'll have him stay afterwards. We're going to have, you can approach him and me for any questions afterwards. Let's get back into it. I want to get very practical right now. We are going to go into an example. And if you click the next slide, it's just a couple of screenshots. But I like to use this website called redfin.com. Anybody ever heard of Redfin or Zillow.com? Yeah, why are you all so excited for Zillow? What is that? Yeah. I'm gonna tell you right now, Redfin estimates or Zestimates, like the Zillow estimates, they call it like Zestimate, is not accurate, okay? It's not always accurate. I know a lot of people look at those numbers and they're like, oh, this home is worth that much, whatever. My home is worth so much. It's not always accurate. Anyways, that's what they're well known for. We're gonna go ahead and dive in. Let's switch screens. We're gonna go into a mortgage calculator, and I want you guys to see this and understand how these components work of when you are calculating your DTI and all of these things. What does that actually look like? We have it. It's behind me, huh? Okay. So if you go to Redfin or Zillow, I don't personally like Zillow. It's just a personal preference. I like the Redfin layout and whatnot. But if you go there, you will see what is called, can you scroll up, Ergo? Mortgage calculator. Very, very powerful tool. You go into this, you can plug in all sorts of numbers, and you can run a lot of hypotheticals. When we were talking about DTI, debt to income ratio, you can calculate and understand a lot of these components from this simple tool, this simple online free tool, mortgage calculator. Go to Redfin or Zillow.com and you'll be able to pull this up. So we have this pulled up. Erico, let's test out a few different things here. We're looking at can everyone see this? Yeah? Okay, home price right now is at, okay, well, let's take it from the audience. Anybody, how much do you want this hypothetical home to cost? $1 million? Okay, let's run it. Okay, Ergo, can you type in $1 million? Oh my goodness, $8,000 a month. $1 million at 5% down. Ergo, let's give 10%. You're putting $100,000 into $1 million home. What's the interest rate on this? That's just today's interest rate, right? At a 30-year fixed rate mortgage at current rates of 6.729%, what is I think all of this is auto-populated, right? This is with no HOA either. Your monthly payment is $7,677 per month. Marcus, can I use you as a calculator again? Just pull out your phone calculator. And let's do this. Take 7,677 divided by 0.45, your DTI calculation. This will show you, to support this amount of debt, this is how much you have to make in monthly income. You can multiply it by 12, then it'll go to your annual income. So 7,677 divided by 0.45, what do you get?
17,060.
17,000 multiplied by 12. That's your monthly income, 17,000. How much do you need to make a year?
204,720.
204?
720.
720. You need to make over 200 grand to be able to afford this house right now. That's a lot of money. 204,000. let's get a more reasonable estimate, okay? let's get a less discouraging example. Okay, let's go back. All right, knock the price down. 700. We just shaved off 300 grand. Thank you very much. 700,000. Okay, all right, that's a lot more reasonable. Still decently high. Okay, 700,000 at 10%. $70,000. So you'll need to save $70,000 plus, we said 1.5 to 2% for your closing costs, right? 2% of the purchase price will be another $14,000. So you'll need 70 plus 2%, 84,000, right? You save 84,000, and Marcus, one more time, calculation: 5374 divided by 0.45, and then multiply by 12. 143,000. I won't worry about the details. $143,000. It's a good amount of money. Trying to understand how much you need to be able to afford all of these different things and different components. Here's a few things that I want to change, and I don't want people to be too discouraged from all of this. Okay? Let's look at the price. I don't think it's going to change like that much more. 700,000. I think in Southern California, it's pretty reasonable. There's definitely more cost-effective areas that you can go in, but I think 700 might be a good median price for us. Let's try to go 20%. If I am able to save more money, what impact does that have on how much I have to make per month? You see that drop down? I didn't see what the number was, but Marcus, let's do this calculation now. Earlier, you had to make how much? 143,000. That's saving 84,000 towards your down payment and your closing costs. We said you have to make 143,000. Now at this updated number, if you are able to save double the money for the down payment, you put 20% down, your mortgage comes down, and what does that look like? 120,000. And you will start to see there's like an interesting trade-off between the two. You saved how much more money? Anybody? We said, okay, earlier was 70,000 and now 140 minus the closing costs or whatever. It's a $70,000 difference. That's a lot of money, right? $70,000 is a good chunk of money. You put $70,000 more and it only shifts the income by about 23. Did you say 120 versus 143? Yeah?
Yes.
Anybody see the disproportion there?
Yeah.
So when we asked that question earlier in that poll, what is your most powerful tool in being able to tackle all of this? Is actually your income. If you make 20 grand more, it's the same as saving $70,000 and putting it towards the down payment. It's good to have a good down payment. It's good to save your money, but you need to understand that your income is going to be unmatched. It's going to affect the DTI calculation and the amount that you can save and the things that you can do, how much house you can afford and the price of things that you can afford at this amount is going to be largely affected by how much money you make on a monthly and an annual basis, more so than how much money you can save for the down payment. Because even if I go, let's see how much it takes to knock it all the way down. Erico, go to 25, let's go to 30%. 30% down payment. How much do I get? I don't even get under 4,000. Marcus, can you do this one? 4074. I still have to make six figures, I think. 108,000. You're saving 210 grand, and you still have to make not that much. It's like you can't save that much more. Do you understand what I'm saying? Your taxable income in the DTI calculation, it is going to be the most powerful tool. If you can boost that number up, it's going to affect what is on here quite a bit. Now you look at this number, can we go back, Ergo, let's go back to 20%. Go back to 20%. Okay, $45.27 per month. You have to make 100, this one's at 120, right? 120,000. If we were talking about car payments, right? Does anybody know the average car payment price in America? Sorry, monthly car payment, whether finance or lease or whatever, for a new car. Somebody Google it real quick, and then we'll get the exact number. It is in the 700s. It is 700 something thousand. $742. I think that's what I remember. I searched it this morning. $742. Now, let me show you the impact that if you are like the average American consumer and have a $742 a month car payment, this is the impact that it has on your home buying capability. Erico, we're gonna keep going. Oh, Katrina, we're gonna keep going until we can knock that down. What's the, Marcus, can you, 445.27 minus 742.
3785.
3785. All right, let's decrease the home price, Katrina, until you get to 3785 in monthly payment. Keep going. You dropped 100 grand. Brenda, is that me? Am I ringing? Am I standing in front of the speakers? Stand back here. What was the number, Marcus?
3785.
3785. Okay, too much. So maybe 575? Let's try that.
600.
Okay, we're getting close. 580? Close enough, right? 3785, you can add another $30. Look what your $742 car payment, the impact that it just had. You can now afford how much less house? Your car payment, if it is at $742, just costs you $120,000 of house. So you tell me what your car is worth. That depreciating Toyota Camry that you are driving, or that depreciating Lexus or whatever, BMW 3 Series that you think, your friends think you look so cool driving in, you just cost yourself 120 grand of home buying power. So you tell me, again, I'm not here to like make you feel bad or shame you or whatever, but get your priorities right. Get your priorities right, because a lot of these, like we talk about in those financial categories, when you're looking at liabilities, lifestyle things, I'm mostly talking to the young people. I think the older crew, like, you're okay. The lifestyle things, like when you get out of college, you think, oh, it's just a $300, $400, $500 payment for a car. Please don't do it. Listen to Dave Ramsey. Get the ugly used car that you can afford to pay cash so that you do not have a payment, because you don't want to add. Look how difficult it is already. You got to make 120, 140 grand. You want to add $500 on top of that debt to income ratio? You want to add $500 onto that number? Like if we were at 4,500 earlier, you go up to 5,000. How much money do you have to make to support that? You're going to have to make well into six figures to be able to afford your house plus your little BMW 3 Series. I hope you guys understand that. Any questions here? Do we want to run any more hypotheticals here? Good. Are you encouraged or discouraged after running through this example? Encouraged? I hope so. Let's go up to, here's what I think would be a standard. Katrina, can you go back to 700 and let's go to 10%. And here's the thing. I know it can be discouraging at the moment. Why? Because interest rates are near 7%. If you ask me, I don't have a crystal ball, but understanding where things are headed, interest rates should, big emphasis on should. We are hoping that they will soon, but they should be coming down. If you're not buying today, you're not going to have that 6.7% rate. Look at this. Okay, 5374. Sorry, Marcus, can you do this one more time? Run that number. Is this the 143,000 amount of income, right? Yes. Yeah? Okay, let's go down. Change the interest rate, Katrina. I think scroll up right there. Give me 5.5. If and when interest rates come down, if they knock down to 5.5, look at that. Okay, can you run that one?
129,000.
Okay, it will be easier for you as interest rates come down. You heard that, 129,000, it was 143. It came down another 14. It's not crazy, it's not a huge difference, but let's go down to 5%. I don't know if it'll go down this low. I'm hoping that it'll come back down to the 5s. I don't know if we'll see 3 or 4s anytime soon. But, was that it? Did it go down? Yeah. It did? Okay. Couple $100? $200? Okay. One more time, Marcus. 125. Okay. Knocks down another 4,000. As the interest rates go lower, as you're in a more favorable environment in the macroeconomic trends and all these things, it should get a little bit easier. And again, if you save a little bit more, let's go to 20%, Katrina. If you're at 20% on a $700,000 house, good. We're under 4,000. One more time, Marcus. $104,000. Here's the big thing. $104,000, I know, depending on where you land in your career, Can be challenging. Some of you think that's doable. Here's the thing. You know what most households have when they're trying to buy a house? 2 income earners. If you live in Southern California and you're working a job, tell me that a husband and wife cannot each make $50,000. I think you can do that. I think it's doable. To some of you, yes, it may be a stretch. Some of you, very doable, whatever. But wherever you are, I think with the median income, maybe $50,000, $60,000 in Southern California, this is well within reason. I'll talk about it in a little bit after we bring up some testimonials. I want to bring up somebody who's going to share a little bit about his experience. But then there's an example that my dad brought up. I want to share about that, of somebody making not much more than minimum wage. Husband and wife, they just worked their tails off and put everything they had into a property. We'll talk about the scenario and how they did some of that. Any questions here on the calculator? Anybody want to run any other hypotheticals while we're here? Ask questions? Question, yes.
Is it a first-time buyer, they can get 3% down?
Yes. Can a first-time home buyer get 3% down? There are a lot of programs, like we said, conventional FHA, depending on whether you are a first-time home buyer or the type of program. Again, talk to the lender. Mark can answer a lot more of your questions on that. But yes, 3% down is very possible, or it is possible. But throw that number, 3%. It's very difficult right now. It's quite high. So if you put 3% down, it's doable. You can get in with a little bit of money, but chances are people who are doing 3% down, it's difficult for them to be able to afford from the DTI calculation. It's doable. I would say my encouragement to you is that if you can manage to hit the DTI, whether it's 3%, 5%, 10%, whatever, go for it. There are other strategies and other things that you can do to be able to afford that payment. Just make the calculation work. Get into a property, a good, solid property, right? I don't want you to just buy anything. But get a good property, and then you can do things like renting out a room. Get some additional income. It'll help you afford that DTI calculation. You can afford your mortgage, but you've gotten in even though you only had 3%, 5%, 7%, whatever. Other question? Yes?
How does it benefit your home buying when your spouse is a veteran?
Oh, when your spouse is a veteran, my goodness. Please ask Mark about these questions. If any of you are a veteran, the VA, is it Veterans Administration? Veterans Administration has incredible loan packages just as a service to our military. I think it's very much due. Basically, they have far better programs with much lower costs and much even lower down payment thresholds. I think they have a 0% down for VA. It sounds a little scary to me, but it's an awesome thing that you can get in with literally no money. I don't know if I would recommend no money down, but it's just cool that we can offer our veterans that. Anyways, if you or anyone you know is a veteran, you can apply for a VA loan, and VA loans have far better terms than a lot of other programs out there. So yes, if you serve in our military, you deserve it. Get yourself a good loan. Yes? Which button? This big button? Are you a veteran? Yeah, let's click it. Let's see what happens. What happened? Did it go down? Click it again. There you go. People are like, I'm signing up for the draft now. Like, oh, okay. My goodness. Okay, let's get our priorities correct. You want to serve? You serve. You get this. Do not join and sign up for the draft for $500 a month. My goodness. Y'all crazy, man. Okay, but there are very good programs for people who are veterans. Yes, I saw a hand over there. Yeah.
So earlier you mentioned that the DTI is calculated based off of gross, but that $5K a month there is coming out of our net. So how are we supposed to make the calculations there?
The 5K is coming out of your net.
For your mortgage, correct?
Yes, yeah, including what we mentioned, PITI interest, principal, interest, taxes, insurance. Yeah.
So shouldn't we calculate, I guess to be realistic, the DTI to be out of our net rather than the gross?
Yeah.
All right.
This is I'm sorry, I'm just being funny here, but I think the important point is control your spending. Because at the end of the day, like I said, you don't pay this number, you're getting kicked out of your house. And again, I think that's the emotional component that ties you to a primary residence is, Hans, whether you like it or not, you will cut all sorts of other spending to make sure you afford this, before your family gets kicked out on the streets and the bank repossesses your home. You're not going to let that happen. If that means selling your BMW 3 Series like we're talking about, you will sell that before you get kicked out of your house. If it means eating out less, if it means less DoorDash, if it means all of those things, you will cut all of those things before you give up paying this. So yes, from a personal finance perspective, you should definitely look at all of your expenses and where else you're spending money to make sure that you can comfortably afford this. From the lender's perspective, you're just like squeezing every last dollar you can to make that work. So you don't want to be spending your money in other places that will make it difficult to pay your mortgage. Yep. Yes, sir.
If I could afford a higher down payment, like 35 to 40%, should I?
35 to 40%. Should you? I'm very careful in giving that kind of advice. There's a lot of factors that go into that. Me personally, or your scenario? I don't know much about your scenario. Given that question, his question was, if somebody can afford 35 to 40% down payment on a house, should they do it? If you are me, I would not do such a thing. I'd rather try to get 2 houses at 20% down than 1 at 40%. That's later stages. This is home buying, get you into your first house, right? But if you ask me, I would rather, I'm a little less risk averse, and I would try to grow a little bit more. I'd say that if you can afford a 40% down payment in Southern California, I think there are other ways that you can grow your portfolio better than dumping 40% into just one property. So that's like a next stage question. We'll talk after. Any other questions? Good. Okay, again, you can access this. Go to Redfin app, Zillow app on your phone. You can punch in all the numbers. I would just run the hypotheticals and find a target, find a price point, find all of these things. Like look at the area and like the price for the houses that you want to buy in. Punch those numbers in and set a goal, set a target for yourself. Because if you don't make these things realistic, you won't be able to achieve them. You need to put this on paper and say, by this time, I want to afford this much house and it will cost me this much. I need to make this much income. Yes? Yes. Okay, let's move forward. I want to bring up a dear friend of mine. Can we welcome to the front here, Mr. Erico Halim. All right, Mr. Halim, welcome. Thank you for joining on stage.
Yes,
Okay.
pleasure to be here.
Okay, can we go to the next slide? All right, there we go. I didn't tell Erico. This actually is not his house.
I wish that was my house.
We just took a picture in front of a random house and no, I'm just kidding. That's just like a project that we worked on together. Erico, a little bit of background, has been working with me. We've been doing some kind of joint venture projects. He's been learning about the world of real estate investing. And I'm very proud to say, I think he's probably even more proud to say, that as of 2024, late 2024, he became not only first-time homebuyer, but a real estate investor as well. Wow. And the picture or the screenshot on the right, sorry, it was a GIF. I didn't realize I printed it it was supposed to be like a little moving image where we're giving a hug. All you see is me now. I covered his face. But that's Erico, trust me. That's Erico that I'm hugging. That was actually at his house that he bought in August, right? Yeah. In August of 2024. He has been a homeowner for a little over half a year now, huh? Wow. Okay, so I'm just gonna give you kind of the floor. I'll prompt you with a couple questions. Can you tell us, Erico, like what kind of property did you buy? What age did you buy it at? And what was some of that process like for you?
Yeah. So just a little background, I started investing when I was 18, and I knew I wanted to go into real estate, but I never had this class or this conference of learning the types of loans, DTI, all that. I didn't know. The only thing I knew was my parents told me, you need 2 years of W-2 income and you can buy a house. So I'm like, okay, fair, and that's exactly what I did. I used my W-2 from 2022 and 2023 to buy a house in 2024. And there's a lot of intricacies to my story. There's a lot of complex things that I won't get to today. But I'm here to talk about kind of like beating the odds, beating the statistics. Wherever you go, whether it's on TikTok, YouTube, even news, they will talk about affordability this, affordability that, like it's getting higher and higher. It's getting hard to afford a house, right? But and I think all my life, when we talk about a perspective shift, a mindset shift, we have to think about, oh, how can I beat those odds? How can I beat those statistics? I don't know. It's implemented in me to beat statistics. I'm like, want to like see, oh, Harvard's 2% admission rate. I'm not 2%, you know? And that's exactly the
What, you got accepted at Harvard?
Oh, I didn't try.
He's too good for Harvard, he says.
Maybe for later on in the future. But yeah, that's the mindset we need to have, is that we are that 2%, right?
Yeah.
God called us for a greater purpose on this earth. And it's not just to, I don't know, live out a life without purpose or always worrying about money. It's not about that, right? We want to give the best unto the Lord.
Yeah.
And for those young people, like, this is the time to set a good foundation, okay? So, where do I even begin? This is such a, let's just say it was a stressful, like, escrow, okay? I'll start off with why I decided to buy a property that time is because in late 2023, there's a new regulation actually that it's easier for us to be able, like, when I say us, like consumers, to be able to buy a multifamily home. Back then, you probably have to come up with at least 15% and upwards to 25% in order to buy a property up to 4 units, right? And then the rental income will then help you out in your DTI, okay? They made it easier in the sense that you can put 5% down and you can buy into a 4-unit property as an owner occupied, okay? Meaning that you have to live in one of the units, and then the other 3, you will rent it out in market value, hopefully, and it will help your DTI. And I know Mark can probably tell you more about that, like how the calculations work. So ever since that news came out, I've been just on Zillow, on Redfin for 3-4 months, and like every day, I'm like sorting through MLS. What's my next target? What's my next multifamily home here? And I landed across this house right here.
I should have put a picture of the actual house. Huh? I don't know.
Yeah,
put this
maybe
this one just looking at us. Look,
after.
we look so happy over there. We're standing and smiling.
That is a nice house.
Yeah.
It's really nice.
He like came from work in his scrubs and everything. He just like had done heart surgery or something, and then came over to the house. Sorry, go ahead.
Too much information. But yeah, I knew I had to take advantage of this because not a lot of people knew about it. Not a lot of people knew that if you buy a single-family home with an ADU, you can use the ADU rental income to help with your DTI. For example, oh man, I'm not good at math, but I'll give an example, okay? This is not mathematically accurate, but let's say in your current income level of, let's say, $100,000, with the current 6.5% interest rate, you can afford maybe up to like, what did we talk about earlier? $700K maybe?
Mm-hmm.
But with the rental income, you can actually afford more. Let's say up to like $900,000 or $1 million. And that was my mistake actually. My first mistake going into escrow is I was working with a retail loan officer. When I say that is later on or earlier on Redfin on that calculator, when you click get pre-approved, it will give all your information to all these big mortgage lenders. One of them like Better, blah, 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 whatever, like the giants, right? And those guys, they're hard to deal with because they have so many other clients that they won't really work on your profile and as meticulous as someone like Mark. He's near and dear to my heart. He's near and dear to my heart.
This is basically just a 3-hour session of like, we love Mark. Mark is good. If it wasn't clear, Mark worked on Erico's file, and I can't brag about about him enough. There were so many different obstacles and challenges that came through, and you cycled through, like you said, other lenders, and basically like Erica was working with a different lender at first, and Mark kind of came in at the last hour because the first guy dropped the ball and was like, I can't do it, I can't make these numbers work. And Mark just comes here like, super Mark, like comes in, he's like, I'll make it work, like do this, move that, do that. I don't want to see that, I want to see this, and boom, boom. I was like, man, we were on the phone, on and off with the phone with Mark. I was like, Erica, I'm so stressed out from this little file, but somehow he got that done. And what Erica was talking about, yes, is very true. You want somebody who's very specific and like niche in a mortgage lender, not just like, you can go to Chase, Bank of America, these big guys, but they have very standardized programs that are just gonna be a lot more strict, and they don't have as much detail and nuance to be able to work with you to get it done. And yeah, like if it was for a standard lender, I don't think you'd be in that property right now.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we heart Mark.
Before I go more into like
Go ahead.
challenges of getting into a real estate, I want to talk about my property right now, kind of like give you guys an idea what it is or how the strategy works, all right? This is basically house hacking. I think James mentioned it earlier with someone who was making minimum wage, and they were able to make all the payments. Why? Because they rent out all their rooms, 1, 2, 3 rooms, whatever. Yeah.
Yep.
Make the
I want to clarify real quick. House hacking, so people will say house hacking. The traditional old way before that regulation change in 2023, house hacking is just living in the property, qualifying for the property as an owner occupied, but then again, you rent out the rest of either the other units or the other rooms in the house, and that rental income, whether it was used to qualify the DTI or not, is just helping you pay for the mortgage. Does that make sense? So that's house hacking, but then it stepped up another level, and this is to clarify again what Erica was doing. He bought a small multifamily unit where it was a single family house in the front, and then it had what's known as an ADU in the back, accessory dwelling unit. It's basically 2 houses on one lot. And with the 2 houses, the income from the rent on the back unit adds to the income that you are making from your own annual income, your W-2 or whatever, and it supplements the two. And then you can afford, like you said, a higher price point. You can afford a higher amount of debt because that rental income on the property is going to help support your annual income. So that's essentially house hacking. And now that goes, Mark, is it up to 4 units? It goes up. He's nodding. He says it goes up to 4 units. So you can do something with an ADU. You can do a duplex, triplex, quadruplex, up to 4 units. That regulation just changed. So I think that's a big strategy for a lot of people who are looking to do something like that.
Yeah, and this one is more complex in a sense where even though it's single family home with an ADU in the back, there's actually a separation between the main house and a studio, essentially. It's not a full, I live there right now, so I'm not going to get sued for this, but there's no cabinets on it, and there's a kitchenette and all that, so I'm okay, yeah. So I live there, unless I sue myself, then oh Lord.
Can I expand on that?
Oh, okay.
The room's going to be a little confused. Front unit had 3 bedrooms. 3 bedrooms, huh?
2 bedrooms.
No, in totality, with the studio.
Totality.
So 3 bedrooms. Legally speaking, it had that 3 bedrooms, or I think that third one was like a bonus room or something, right? It was like a playroom, game room, whatever. And basically what he went and did was sealed off the third room, and it's got its own little kitchen and bathroom, whatever, sealed that off so somebody can live in the front unit, and there's a studio unit that this dude is bumming it out in, and he's got the front unit now has 2 bedrooms and a bathroom there. He's got the ADU, which also has 2 bedrooms and a bathroom, and then he's just living in the middle one in the smallest, like most humble way, but now he's making money on 2 units. And I'm like, bro, this is house hacking. To me, like that's the way to do it, is where you're minimizing like your liabilities, your expenses, your lifestyle to get into that goal. And now I told him like, hey, when you get married, you want to buy a house, whatever, like now you have an appreciating asset, whether you hold this and go buy something else, or you want to just liquidate, sell this thing and then go buy a house and get married and do all this stuff. You have something working in your favor while he's living in this little studio unit. He's got 2 tenants in there, man. It's great. It's awesome.
And I won't share into too much detail, but they're currently paying 75% of my mortgage.
Look at that. That's incredible.
And as of my conversation with Mark a couple weeks back, I think the net change in value or appreciation in the last 6 months, I think, exponential, maybe like $150,000 to $200,000 more. If I were to, yeah, appreciation.
That's it, man. That's it.
But yeah, I'll talk more about.
How old are you when you bought the house?
Oh, that's right. I was 24.
Are you still 24?
I am not 24.
25 now?
I'm 25 now. Yeah.
24. Homeowner at 24. Woo!
We beat the odds.
It's doable. You beat it by
14 years.
14.
Okay. So
That's good.
whether I'm up here as a testimony, as an encouragement, and as like an empowerment almost to educate you guys that it is possible through strategies. And I know a lot of people, hate on the government, but these are ways. These are ways for the government to help people like me, like you guys, to get into real estate. They're making it easier barrier of entry, essentially. Okay. Yeah. The first challenge I told you guys, I was working with a bad loan officer. When I got pre-approved through like the Redfin calculator, whatever, I got like pre-approved for 1.15 or something $1 million. That's how much loan I can take out, or how much home I can essentially purchase. And I'm like, wow, Pastor James, like, I can buy a lot of things with this, I can qualify for a lot of things. So I'm like, let's put an offer there, put an offer on this one. And when I got to this one, even though I was so like, I guess confident that I can qualify because it's like less than what I was pre-qualified for or pre-approved for, okay? But little did I know is that my pre-approval letter was not underwritten, and we'll talk more, Mark can explain more on that, all right, I'll touch base on that later. And also it's pre-approved for more than 3 units, okay? 3 to 4 units. If I was buying a property that's 3 to 4 units, I would be able to easily qualify and get underwritten approval, whatever. Escrow would be smooth, let's just say that, okay? But no, that wasn't the case. That's where Mark came in, okay? I'm giving him a lot of marketing here. Marketing. Yeah, many challenges. The second one is paying off the car. I think when I was talking to Mark, like, I need to keep my expenses low. Like, oh man, like I had to pay off my car.
What was your car payment? Can I ask you?
It was $400 a month.
Okay.
And I think it's been 2 years since I had it, so I only had a year left, thank God. So I was able to pay off like what would be more towards my down payment. I had to take some money out and put it into the car instead, okay, to keep the expenses low for DTI. And like I said earlier, my parents told me just 2 years of W-2, and that's what I did. Even though in 2024, I am making roughly maybe 20% more than my last 2 W-2, I'm constricted to the first 2 years of my W-2. And that's kind of like an example of what happened when we're talking about the tax timeline, is that you're constricted to the past 2 before, let's say in 2025, you have not filed your
24 taxes, yeah. You're in 22 and 3, basically.
Yeah, essentially,
3 years ago.
You have to use your 2022 and 2023 W-2 income, okay? And that, if you guys got promoted in between, like you can't even use that unless you have that W-2 income.
I think W-2 might be a little bit different. It depends on what people have. I think what comes into play is if you make like commissions in your job,
That's right.
if there's any piece that's 1099 or variable in your income, they need to average it over at least 2 years. So that's where it starts to get very difficult.
Yeah. I left out that piece of information that inside my W-2 income, I do make commission, and the first 2 years was significantly less than the current one.
Yeah.
So that's also a challenge. Yeah, if you do make commissions.
Erica, we've got maybe time for like one more thing. You want to? What's your final send off? What would you encourage people with? What would you warn people about?
I would encourage you guys to get an underwritten pre-approval letter, okay? Basically, the mortgage lender will take a look at all your cash accounts, how much money you have, and they will pre-approve you for everything that you are, okay? Not some pre-approval letter from a big retail giant, but someone who already looked at your profile.
So to clarify on that note, you said you got pre-approved for 1.15, but then that was not true
Not true.
because
Because,
too many units. That was for 3 to 4, and you ended up buying a 2 unit,
yeah,
right?
this is only 2 units.
Legally, it's 2 units, right? Okay.
And yeah, I mean, I can ramble on more, but I don't know. That's just, I don't know what else. Do you have any point for me that you want me to share?
You're good? You're good? I think that's it. Any questions? Can we just open it up? Any questions for Erico before we move on to the next portion? We don't have too much time here, so any quick questions for Erico? Yes, sir.
How many percent down payment did you put in, and how did you save for that?
I put 7%, and my purchase price was $960K. So roughly about 70,000 around there.
How'd you save for it?
How did I save for it? I think I was born
Work.
into a family that is very frugal, and that helped a lot. Okay? That helped me get in that mindset of, oh, I need to save, I need to invest. So I started, like I said, I started early on, like 18, I started investing. When I had my W-2 income, I just saved, ate a lot of, if you guys know, cancan in San Diego Valley.
Please explain. Please explain. What is Cancan?
It's a Chinese food court that
Chinese food court.
Back then it was like $9, and they pack up your food, and it could last.
It's like 2 meals in one, you're saying?
Yeah, 2 meals in one.
There you
I ate a
go.
lot of that.
No DoorDash. Ain't no DoorDash for Cancan, okay?
Or just
You
eat at
drive
home.
to go get your
Just eat
Cancan.
at home, all right? Your parents could
Go
just
cook.
eat their food, okay? Don't be picky.
Yeah.
Save a lot, and don't. If you have a goal in mind, right, from the beginning, when you're setting good foundation financially, like everything will just come into play, right? So it's not. For me, it wasn't a matter of how much I need to save, or it's a matter of like. I guess like building that good financial habits. Okay.
It's good. Got one more over there. Garrett, and then we'll move on here.
What was your starting investment?
What was your?
18. Stock market.
Can you repeat it for the camera? What was your starting investment at 18?
My starting investment were stocks. Okay.
What happened?
Bonds. Yes, a lot of. I don't eat Indomie anymore because of they did there's health issues associated with Indomie. So no more Indomie now.
No more Indomie. I do not endorse this.
Food.
I believe in Indomie. There's a special place in my heart for Indomie. Anyways, I would encourage you, if you are young and live at home with your parents, stay home.
Oh, yeah.
Save money. You can save hundreds of dollars a month and save on your expenses. I did it after school, graduated, and lived at home for 2 years. Why? Because I was saving up to go buy a house and get married. And I saved so much money, not paying rent, not paying all these utilities and whatnot. Even if you are helping your parents with the mortgage and all that other stuff, you will still save so much by sharing those things together. Save up. You do not need to go get your own apartment and all that when you are 18, 19, 20 years old. Stay at home if you can. Save money. Go buy your house when you're 24 like Erico. Okay, thank you so much. Can we get a round of applause? Thank you, Erico. I want to give one more segment here. I saw a question. Was that in relation to what we're talking about here? Yes? Question? No? We'll get to it in a second if not. Okay, let me do this. This is kind of my final piece, and we'll just open it for Q&A. We're running close to our end time here. Let's go to the next one. This is the big question that I want us to answer here of what do I do next? Wherever you are, I think this is, whatever stage or whatever part of your journey you are in, I think it's very important to ask yourself these tangible questions of what is it that you need to do next. Number one, I would say build a plan. I cannot do that for you on a stage in front of 80 people, okay? Each one of you have a different situation, different scenario, different levels of income, different timelines, all of these different things. You need to build out a plan. I would say identify a target. That means a price point. What type of home? Are you going to buy a condo, a townhouse? Are you going to buy a single family home? Where are you going to buy it? Is it going to be your primary residence, or are you going to go and buy a rental property and then rent out and make rental income on that? And then, like I said, go talk to a lender because they can tell you a lot more detail than we're able to tell you individually. Number 2, I would say this: eliminate debt and expenses. Like we talked about, the car and all of that stuff is not going to help. Decrease as much of expenses as you can so that you can, number 3 and 4, increase your income and save and invest. Number 3, I would say this, like we said, we saw the power of what income can do, right? It's going to be your most powerful tool in terms of your DTI. Increase your income to the highest level possible so that you can hit that target of 45 to 50% DTI. If you're on a W-2, maximize your salary. Do well in your job, and you need a higher W-2 income. For 1099, you need to do 2 components. Not only do you need to increase, you need to increase and stabilize. If you increase one year, but next year it goes down, that's going to be a problem for you. It needs to increase and continue to increase, ideally, because they will average out, but also if it goes up and then down, it's a different calculation than when it's down and then up. Does that make sense? They're looking, oh, this is a good trend, and I think there's a different calculation that we can take, but if it's going down, it's going to be a problem. They're going to look at the lower end, the lower estimate, not the higher one. That's increasing your income. I would say as much as you can, create alternate sources of income. If you can work a side hustle, make more money to save for your down payment and do all of that, please go and find other sources of making more income. And so that, number 4, you can save and invest. Take your money, plug it into I put there, HYSA is a high yield savings account. CIF is a church investors fund. I wanted to talk about this. The company or the lender that is lending us money for that building project on the training center is an organization called CIF, Church Investors Fund. We'll send it out in the group chat and all of that stuff when you, what's it, as a resource for you guys. But they're giving anywhere between 3, 4, and 5% return on fixed income investments, where you just put their money, it's like a high yield savings account, but the cool thing is you're reinvesting in their company, which lends out to other churches to build. You're sowing back into the kingdom of God, not Chase Bank to get 3.5%, okay? Nothing wrong with Chase. I'm just saying, if you're going to get the same rate, I'd rather do it in the kingdom of God than just out there in the world, okay? REIT, R-E-I-T, is Real Estate Investment Trust. This is what companies like myself, I'm not a REIT, but like what we do is, again, very similar to CIF and some of these things. We offer investors a certain fixed rate of income for their investments with us. You want to plug it into, again, I'm not pitching myself or anything. I'm just saying you want to plug it into a company, a sponsor, something or someone that is going to give you more than just plugging it into a bank and getting 0.5%, 1%, or whatever, right? You want to have the money grow, but I would be careful. I know Erico said he put his money into stocks. I'm very careful with stocks because if you have seen the stock market recently, in November and December, everyone was like, yay, Trump. And then a couple months later, everyone's like, oh no, Trump and tariffs, right? Where did the stock market go? It went up. Everything went really good. I hold a lot of Tesla stock. It was a rough couple of months, man. Everything went sharply down, right? Stocks are volatile. Yes? There are some stocks, okay, you want to put it in an index fund, S&P 500 or whatever, Vanguard, VT Sachs or whatever it is, all those things. Put it into something stable that will not disappear or go down by 10, 15, 20% in a matter of weeks or months. You want something stable so that you can grow this over time. I would rather you put it in something safe, like a high yield savings, a CIF, one of those guys, something stable for the long term so that when it comes in a year or 2 years, you can draw on that and make sure that most of the money is still there. Yes? And here are your 2 goals for numbers 3 and 4. I would say you are looking to grow, number 1, your DTI, number 2, your down payment. Yes? Make sense? You want to increase the amount of income, at the same time, save as much money as you can, put it into a larger down payment because that will help your DTI calculation as well with a lower mortgage amount. And number 5, finally, when you're ready, you've done all of this, go buy a house. You've talked to your lender from step 1, go talk to a realtor, start house hunting, and happy hunting. That is it for me. Anybody learn anything? Yes? I hope you guys were blessed. I hope you're encouraged as well. I want to open it up here. I want to open up Q&A. Mark, can I just have you come on down? I think we're going to get like a lot of lender questions and whatnot. Can you just like hang out with me? If it's anything mortgage related, I'm not even going to try and answer it. I'm just going to pitch it to you. Just, if you can stand here, let me hand you a mic. Okay. Whoa, you good? How's the coffee?
Excellent.
Excellent. Okay, questions? Q&A. I know we've had a lot of questions already. You guys are awesome. Yes, we'll go here and then go to James.
The lowest
Oh,
credit score.
sorry, Debbie. Can we get her on the mic? Catch her for the recording.
What is the lowest credit score that you can go based on? Comparison to the lowest to the highest, or what's a good score?
Two different questions there. What's the lowest credit score that someone can buy a house with? There are ways to buy a house with a credit score in the 500s. But your second question is also very relevant because the higher your credit score is, the lower you're paying for every dollar that you're putting on.
Yeah, sorry. Just come towards the middle, maybe mic closer to the.
You're paying more for every single dollar that you're borrowing if you have a low credit score. So definitely important to get that credit score up first before you buy a house. Now that said, when you talk to a good mortgage lender, they should allow you to see your credit report or at least talk to you about your credit report and provide advice on what you can do to improve your score.
I would say that's why it's also, am I on? That's why it's also important to be able to do this in advance. You don't want to be, talking to your realtor trying to buy a house and then realizing, wow, I need to improve my score. If you give it some time, a mortgage lender can work with you. I mean, you need a few months, I would say, at least, right?
If not years.
If not years to try and build up your credit score. Yeah.
I've taken people's application and 3 years later, they're buying their house.
There you go.
And that's
Okay.
fine.
Yeah. So it's a work in progress, and I think that's why we want to get you guys ahead of the game so that you can take those necessary steps. If it means like getting from a 500 to a 600, that'll change the game entirely in terms of closing costs, affordability, all of those things it's a big game changer if you can change a FICO score. Good? Let's go, James, and then we'll go to Garen over there.
Piggybacking off of that question, for an FHA loan, what's a good FICO score?
FHA is very forgiving on credit, so depending on the lender that you apply with, in many cases, FHA will even go down to the 500s. But again, you're still paying more for every dollar that you're borrowing. So FHA, the two major features of FHA are that it is more forgiving on credit scores. Most of the applicants that I'm actually doing FHA loans have scores in the 600s and 700s. Then the other feature is they'll go to a higher debt ratio. The slide earlier said 50% debt ratio. You can actually get to a 57% debt ratio on an FHA loan.
Okay.
Not that I'm recommending someone purchase a home with a 57% debt ratio, but it can be done, but again, you have a better credit score.
I think to Garen, and then we'll go to Michelle.
Okay, so this is going to be a two-part question. So I actually finally got that answered. I was going to actually ask 3 questions, but now it's only 2. So with a good credit score, would it be necessary or would it be beneficial to co-sign or to combine 2 credit scores or 2 individuals? Like, I'll just give an example. Here, if I were to buy a home, would it be beneficial to co-sign my dad in that loan?
You're asking specifically from a credit score standpoint or from an income qualifying standpoint?
Credit score.
From a credit score standpoint, most loan programs, the vast majority, are going to
Go with
take
the
the
loan.
lowest score
Yeah.
in the application.
That is very interesting. All right. And second part, if I were to just use my own credit score, would that also just mean that my income is to be factored, only my income to be factored, not my household's income to be factored?
That's correct.
Yeah, when we say household income, it's only a house. They only consider you a household if you are co-borrowers on the loan. And so it doesn't matter who you live with. It's just a matter of who's on the loan. We say household because it's typically a married couple, husband and wife who have their incomes jointly combined together. There are scenarios. I think for myself and for others. I know people. I applied and then I didn't put my wife on the loan, but she was on the title to the property. So technically, it's not household income. It was just an individual's. But then the whole idea of having a co-borrower, whether your spouse, a parent, or whoever, is mostly, like Mark said, it's not going to help the credit situation. They'll go with the lower credit, but then it's just to help the DTI calculation to bring in additional income. But you got to be careful because whoever you're co-borrowing with and bringing in, you're sharing liability, but everything gets shared. All their DTI and any debts that they have come on board with you, right? So their debts and their income tag along with you.
like a
So if they have debt, it's bringing you down. The way it's bringing them down, it will bring you down too. If it's an income and it's a positive, it will bring you up too. But it's a combination of those.
Thank you. That very much clarifies it. Thank you.
I know a lot of people who have co-borrowed when they're young. They've co-borrowed with parents. I would be very careful. I would give a word of caution of co-borrowing. I mean, with your parents is one thing. With anyone, obviously, I've heard of people like trying to do house hacking with friends or whatever. I think that's a very dangerous situation. You don't know where you're going to be in 2 to 3 years. Like if you're going to want to sell the house, one person wants to live in it, one person wants to sell, etc. I think parent would be the closest one. Even siblings gets a little bit touchy. Seen a lot of family feuds because siblings don't agree on what to do with the property and an asset. I think parents is the only person I would co-borrow with, and even that, have things very clear-cut, even in writing if you can, of what we are doing and how we're going to line out absolutely everything so there's no disagreements or misunderstandings. Michelle, can we grab the mic?
So I'm estimating about 8 to 10 years of student debt. Would that set me back from even attempting to buy a house? But working.
Can you clarify the question? Will it set you back from buying a house,
like,
as in?
Even attempting to, because the DTI would be low, but I would
Yeah.
still be making an income somewhat. Like I'm estimating to work during school as well. So would that debt still set me back from even trying to buy a house?
Okay, I understand the question. Well, first of all, the minimum payment on a student loan relative to each dollar of debt is a lot lower than that same dollar of debt would be costing you monthly on a credit card or something like that.
Yeah.
So yes, every debt factors into your debt to income ratio, your DTI ratio we saw earlier. But a lot of loans that I've done have involved someone with student debt that bought their first home. So it can absolutely be done. One thing I'll also add to this, but very embarrassed by how many times you said my name today. James has given this wonderful presentation today, and if I had heard this when I was in my 20s, I'd have a lot more money today, probably.
Yeah.
That said, he also gave you guys a lot of basic information about loan qualifying, and I would encourage you, even if you're sort of thinking about buying a house a year from now, 2 years from now, 3 years from now, just contact a mortgage lender and put in an application, because it's one thing for you to go on Redfin and figure out what the debt ratio appears to be for the loan you're trying to qualify for, but you might say, there's no way to make this work. A good loan officer might be able to make it work, or they might give you some advice on things you could be doing to make it work. So don't self-disqualify is my point there.
Yeah. If you wanted a straight answer to your question, I would say no. Do not let student debt disqualify you from buying a house or trying to buy a house. Like he said, he's worked on a lot of files. I've seen a lot of people who have student loans and they're still paying those loans off, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you can't buy a house while you are still working to pay those off. If you can, obviously, work hard to pay those off ahead of time. Like we said in the debt calculation, all of that, it will definitely help. It will benefit you to be able to remove those, but I don't think it should stop you. Sasha, we got a few over here. Let's go Tyler and then to the back, and then we'll come back here.
All right. So you said for the DSCR.
Yes.
That's only for if you're a non-owner occupied property.
Rental property loan, basically.
Okay. So for so if you're living in the property and you're renting out to other groups, you can use the conventional or no?
I'm sorry. Yeah, as long as you, the owner, occupy the home, whether you occupy one room or all of the rooms is up to you. But yeah, you could qualify on a conventional, but the income, if I'm correct, the income on a conventional rental income on, if I've got a 4-bedroom house, I rent out 3 and I live in 1, I'm owner occupied, I can't count this rental income for a conventional.
In general, no.
Right?
You could on purchasing a property with an accessory unit. That was a recent change in the last few years.
It's got to be a separate unit.
You're buying a house that has a little granny flat in the backyard. That rent could possibly count. You're buying a house and planning to rent rooms to your friends. Most loan programs aren't going to allow you to use that.
Yeah,
Unless it's an ADU.
Unless it's an ADU.
And that's what Erica was talking about, right? Yeah.
So the distinction, ADU is just a certain type of accessory dwelling unit. Like you said, granny flat is like that little back house. If it has to be a legal separate unit for most lenders to look at it as a rental income. So if it's, if you got a house with 10 rooms and you rent out 9 and live in 1, they're probably not gonna count all of that rental income. Unless it's a separate unit, legally separate unit.
Would a duplex count as like?
Duplex counts because it's got a separate address. You've got 2 legal units. A duplex, triplex, quadruplex, or ADU, anything where it's a legally separate address, permitted, everything. So that's why when we're talking about Erico's little studio thing, that third little studio does not count. And the lender will only look at the front single-family house and the legal ADU, which has its own address. That studio, whatever he does not count from the lender's perspective, and they cannot count that income.
And then does the lender do like the future estimated rental income and add that to the DTI, or?
As in, if I don't have a renter yet, I'm buying a vacant property, yes. I think that's even how Erico did it, right? It was vacant, completely vacant, and they're just saying, what's the market rent for this back unit? I think you can get about $3,500 a month, so we'll use that as the calculation for future rents, but when you have this property, that's what you can take in, and then it'll help boost your income.
And that's with the broker, the mortgage broker, or?
Like who's making the calculation for that?
Yeah.
Yes, that will be the lender making the calculation. Is
Yeah,
the
when you
underwriter?
contact a mortgage lender, they'll help you figure out those numbers.
Okay. That's
Yeah.
Thank you.
I know we had one in the back, and then we'll go back here in the front. Yes, sir.
I have a question. It's regarding grants program. Could you please clarify more about it and maybe explain more? How
Grants. He's asking about grants.
First homeowner will be qualified for that program. Thank you.
Yes, for first-time buyers in California, there's a whole bunch of different programs out there that involve either down payment assistance, closing cost assistance, both. It could be a grant, it could be a loan. Some of them are specific to certain areas, some of them are specific to certain incomes. In other words, you got to make enough to qualify, but you can't make too much. Best thing to do is, again, contact a mortgage lender, tell them I'm looking to buy my first home, I don't have a whole lot of money. What kind of assistance programs do you have access to? And this is one where different lenders are going to give you different answers. So, we heard earlier about talking to the Redfin lender or somebody like that, and they may say, oh yeah, that stuff is, we don't have it, or it's no good, or something like that. There are programs out there to help first-time buyers. You, for the most part, can't have nothing. I will say there are situations where someone could have nothing and could buy a house, but those are limited opportunities. In general, you should have some money saved up so that you could at least cover a small down payment or the closing costs. But for example, Cal HFA, which is the one that we do the most, they take that same 97% loan you saw earlier, the 3% down loan, and they loan you the 3%. So now you've got a 97% first mortgage, a 3% second mortgage, and you got to cover your closing costs. So somebody that has, say, $25,000 to their name could potentially buy a house using that program. Now, they're certainly not getting as good a deal as the person that put 20% down or the person that put 40% down. The more you put down, the cheaper every single dollar that you borrow is. So it's no free lunch. But it's much better to use that program than to wait around 2-3 years to get on the equity train because you're saving 20%. We'd rather get on the equity train now and stop renting and start owning. So sometimes those programs are the best option, and your mortgage lender can help you identify what will work for you.
Thank you. It clarifies everything. Thank you.
I know we had one right here in the front, and then Tyler, we can jump back to you after.
A question. True or false? A lot of people.
You got a quiz for us.
In media said like buying house in California is so expensive, do not buy. 2008 we have a house market crash. So we wait until the market go down and then we buy, or so I just need your opinion because a lot of different information.
If you want my short and sweet answer, no, do not wait for a housing crash. I think that's a very, very straight answer that I can give. what I mentioned earlier, I believe it's my personal conviction with primary residence. I would say you buy when the need arises. When your family, has a need. For some of you getting married, you're looking for a house, or you have a kid, or whatever it is. You have another kid, you run out of space. Like, you buy your primary residence when you need it. In terms of purely an investment, it might be another scenario. But again, I'm in the business of investing in real estate. Whether the market is good or the market is bad, we're trying to find ways to invest in real estate now and find ways to be profitable over the long run, over the course of time. If you ask me, one of the things that what you will see disproportionately in social media, in YouTube or whatever, is that most of the United States real estate market has effectively doubled in the last couple of years. It's crazy. There's the average home price was $250,000 in 2020, and then since the last few years, it's gone to something 400 something or whatever. A lot of places in the United States are probably maxed out in terms of value. Southern California and a few other high appreciation markets are probably one of the exceptions where this thing just does not stop. If you saw it in 1985, you're probably my goodness, 175,000? I'm only making 20,000. 175 is a lot of money. And then sure enough, it keeps going, it keeps going, it keeps going. And then by the time you get 15, 20 years down the line, it's now doubled, it's now tripled. And while you've been waiting on the sidelines for something to drop drastically, and that never happens, you're missing out on all of this growth. Again, that's, I think, the key piece for real estate, and especially primary residence, is you're in it for the long term. You have to be able to wait out the little dips for 1 to 2 to 3 years. Real estate has cycles. It'll go up and down, but in the long run, if you're investing in the 10, 20-year plus horizon, you're not going to lose with Southern California real estate. I know in social media, a lot of the other parts of the United States has very high price points relative to where they were a few years ago. It may not be a great place to buy because I don't know how much more it can appreciate in the next few years. But that's not the market that we live in. So I wouldn't have the same conversation with other people in the Midwest or something.
Okay, last question.
Yeah.
Because the house market in California is expensive, based on your income, not too much. So we invest different states, like Texas, you can buy 250,000 with the big acre, things like that. What do you think? You can.
Obviously, you can invest in different markets. It's a challenging question to answer depending on your goals and all of that. Every real estate market has its advantages and disadvantages. I would say that there are high cash flow markets where you can buy a cheaper house and rent it out for a lot of money. You'll make cash flow, but the appreciation will go almost nowhere. California is the opposite side, where the cash flow is very low. If you buy a house for $1 million, you can only rent it for $4,000, $5,000 something. It's not good cash flow. You probably won't even pay your mortgage, right? You won't even cover the mortgage. But the appreciation in 10, 20 years will just outpace everything else. You just have to pay every month, right? So it's just a matter of which dynamic and what are you playing into. You're buying into different levers in whether cash flow or appreciation. Most Texas markets are kind of a mix of both. Higher rental, lower price in California, but it's kind of a mid-ground. California is a strong appreciation, low cash flow. Other areas like Tennessee or something are going to be high cash flow, very low appreciation. To me, I like the appreciation game. Cash flow, rental income will get taxed at a certain rate. Your capital gains are taxed at a lower rate. I think appreciation is the better route. But again, depends on your portfolio. I've heard this question. I think my dad brought this question up. They said, what if I live, they gave an example. What if I live in Irvine, Orange County, and it is expensive for me to buy a home in this area, right? To buy a home in this area would be very expensive. The lifestyle that my kids go to the school, and everything here, we're renting here. It's $1 million plus for us to be able to afford here. If I were to going from renting into owning, I would decrease our lifestyle and my family and everything would knock down quite a bit. I would challenge them to still try to buy in an appreciation market like Southern California, just a different part. You can keep renting where you are, but just get some kind of piece of equity. You don't have to rent. I'm okay with people renting so long as you own something. For a lot of you, it will be your primary residence. Like we said, combine the asset and the liability. If you are renting and you're owning a different place, you're splitting those two. Your renting and your lifestyle is one liability, but your asset is growing in a more affordable place where at least you don't have to wait another 10 years of renting, and you can at least buy something in a $400,000, $500,000, $600,000. You live in an $8, $9 million range and area, but buy something. Get some equity in some kind of real estate, and ideally in Southern California if you can. Come to the high desert where we're building houses. You can buy for We just sold a property. We built a brand new house, sold it for $455, just closed a couple days ago. $455,000. And it rents out for, I think it'll rent out for like $2,300, $2,400. It's not bad as a rental property.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry. We got one more, and then we'll go over there to the side.
What's the best way to transfer down property throughout generations while avoiding increased property tax? Yeah.
Ooh, that's a different guy. That's a different guy than market. That's another level of things. You want to put it into a revocable living trust. This is some pretty advanced tax strategies, but you want to put it into something called a revocable living trust. Maybe this is an important general statement. Do not sell your property to your children. You do not want to transfer, ideally, while you are alive. You want your children to inherit it as a part of your inherited estate as the trust because of something called, a step up in basis. Basically, the tax will be calculated of a step up in basis. The calculation of where you get the profit calculation and the tax basis will adjust to the higher level, and basically you're paying on far, far less tax at the level at which you inherit it, rather than if your parents sold it to you at a much earlier level. Basically, do not sell your property to your kids. Put it into a trust and name your children as the beneficiary of the trust. And when you pass away, you need to pass away and let them just inherit it. You can figure out which sibling gets what or whatever, but you want to have them inherit it to avoid the amount of capital gains. Again, that's a little bit beyond the scope of things, but it's a good strategy. We can talk more a little bit after.
Okay, one more question.
Yeah.
I don't know if this is you guys' wheelhouse either, but since you're investing in properties in like the IE area, right, the high desert area, would you say that like even in that area where it's like less, it's less economical as like, or not, but there's less value than let's say urban area, because urban is
Sure.
the richest area. Do you still see that area as being part of Southern California, like increasing at the same rate as like the other houses in urban areas?
At the same rate, no. Appreciating still, yes. So the reason this is just a personal note, right? Why our business, why we started doing stuff in the high desert. High desert, if you don't know where that is, if you go on the way to Vegas, up the 15 freeway, past you hear on the news, the Cajon Pass. You go through the Cajon Pass, all these mountains, and you get to Victorville, Hesperia, Apple Valley, all that stuff, Barstow, over there. So we're doing some development over there. The reason that we chose to go out in that direction, it was my dad's prescience, but he saw that it's a good balance of the two. It's probably the best balance of both a little bit of cash flow and a little bit of appreciation that you'll find in Southern California. It's not going to appreciate the same way like a LA or an Orange County is, but it also has a higher cash flow. The rental income is higher in relativity to the price. So it's probably like the last area in like Southern California. I don't know if I call it SoCal, but it's Southern California that is under 600,000. You can easily get a home in the 400,000 and 500,000s. So if you're looking for a strategy where your area is not affordable, I think that's a good place to look, where you can buy a rental property and you can still rent in the mid to even high 2,000s. I think average rent is like 2,600 in the area. We've been able to rent historically closer to like 3,000 on a brand new property. So it's a good balance of the two. It's not going to appreciate at the same rate, but you get kind of best of both worlds. Good? Thanks, Tyler. I got one more on the wing over there. I think we'll do one more and then draw it to a close here. This is Mr. Go China himself, the sponsor of our lunch. Yes, sir.
Question. Earlier, Erico was mentioned, right, that he rent a house, right? So he have an income to pay the house, like about 75%, right? Okay, so now what is the suggestion? If he already, what I mean is, he can pay the mortgage. So what is the suggestion now? So can he buy another house, or what is the suggestion? Because, example, like right now,
he about to expose the future son-in-law, He about to tell, what are your intentions? Where is my daughter going to live, Erico? It's a future father-in-law. He's engaged to his daughter. Just FYI.
No, example, if the three of the room is rented out, right? So that means the house already can pay the mortgage by itself. So what is the suggestion now? So can he buy another house or
Yeah.
what's the suggestion?
Erica and I have been talking. Don't worry. Don't worry, only phone. We will make sure your daughter is in a good place, okay? I told him, I personally went to that place. I was like, Erica, you do not let Shannon live here, okay? I was like, it's a good investment, but you gotta lock your gate and lock your doors at night, okay? I was like, it's a little up and coming neighborhood still, but it's a good investment. My point being, I said, you can live there. It's okay as the guy, but when you get married, like go to a good place, okay? In terms of what are next steps, the challenge with that one, and Mark, jump in here if at any point, correct me if I'm wrong. I would say the challenge is that because legally there's only 2 units, and legally, if 2 units, it's an owner-occupied property, which he qualified for, he's only allowed to rent out 1, right? You can only count the income from 1 because now he's an owner-occupant in 1.
For the purchase loan, yes. For a future purchase, if he was reporting that income on his tax returns, at some point in the future, not right now, he would have 1 or 2 years worth of tax returns showing that he had earned income from those other units, and then he could count it. And I understand where your question's coming from because you're talking about building a portfolio of real estate. And I can, if I have a minute, if you'll indulge me, I have an inspirational story. I've been doing loans for over 20 years, and I did a loan for a CPA, and he referred his son to me. And his son was maybe 20, 21, something like that, worked at Chili's. And his dad had told him to call me to try to buy a house. And so he had his Chili's job, and he had saved up roughly $20,000. And we ran the numbers, and we figured out he could buy a house. And mind you, this was 18 years ago. We figured out he could buy a house for maybe $90,000. And so that's what he did. He bought a $90,000 house, and it was in Riverside, and it was, we'll say, very modest, will be the nice way to put it. Well, that home went up in value. He started renting it, so the rent got on his tax returns. He did a refinance on it to pull some cash out. He bought another property, and he was still a waiter at Chili's. Fast forward to present day, he is still a waiter. He's not at Chili's, but he's still a waiter. He owns about 7 houses. And it's because over the years, he has continued to buy very modest properties and has reported the rents on his tax returns. He always buys them as owner-occupied, lives there 1 year, then he rents the property out. And this is a way that you can build real estate where you might have to make a sacrifice earlier in life by living in some place that might be below your potential standard of living, right? But I guarantee you, 50-year-old him is going to say thank you to 20-year-old him for making that happen.
Yep, that's very true. Let me kind of draw this to a conclusion here. We're at 5:30 at this point. I'll stick around. Me and Mark, if you can stay for a few minutes as well after. We'll just stick around. You guys can come up personally, answer a lot of questions, but I want to honor your time and be able to bring this to a conclusion here. Let me say this. My dad brought up a very similar case. Somebody in our church, in our congregation, in my parents' care cell, making just above minimum wage, very close to minimum wage. I think owns how many properties now? 2? Owns 2 properties? Sorry, two different properties worth $1 million each. They own $2 million worth of real estate, and they don't make that much more than minimum wage. I know it's more challenging because of interest rates and the environment. They probably bought it at a better time, blah, blah, blah. But what just hearing their story, I've heard them. My parents have told me what exactly they did. They rented a place, and they crammed their entire family into, is it one bedroom? 1 bedroom. Parents and kids all in 1 bedroom, and they rented out everything else. And again, they qualified for whatever they could afford, and as it continued to appreciate eventually to $1 million, they rented out everything, they suppressed their lifestyle and all of those things, like Mark was saying, below a means that you're probably comfortable with, but they did it to bank on their future and build it into assets as opposed to what you're enjoying here today. And they're reaping the benefits now. Like their children will reap the benefits of this, of having, first-generation immigrants come into this country with not that much education, not that much assets, not that much cash to their name, but they somehow made it work. To me, I think this is such a big encouragement. You hear stories like that. You hear stories like what Mark is saying. It is more possible than you think. And I think that's why we want to equip you with the knowledge, with the tools, with the resources, the connections, the people that can make this thing happen for you. I know we're on different levels, different backgrounds, different stories, I guess, if you will say, but I think it can be done. I believe it can be done, and I believe that's why we're sowing into you as a community, and I believe God is going to bless each and every one of you and be able to multiply those things as you steward them to the best of your ability. Let's do this. Let's close in prayer. Father, we thank you for today. God, we give you glory, we give you praise and honor. Lord, I thank you for this wonderful time to be able to just share, equip, and just train everybody here. Lord, I thank you. We just speak a prayer of blessing over each one of these men and women, oh God, that have come here today. Lord, I pray for Holy Spirit, would you just give even divine inspiration for creative solutions, Lord, for different approaches, for even people. I thank you for the mindset shift that is taking place for a lot of people today, where they thought that this wasn't a possibility for them, or even in this generation, in this lifetime. I thank you that you're opening doors, oh God, that you're opening possibilities for them to see how this can be done and how you're going to make a way for it. I pray, Lord, that you would anchor people with greater sense of purpose, a greater sense of what it is you've called them to in life, Lord, that all of these things, their assets, their finances, their portfolios, their houses, their real estate, all of these things would be surrendered to the glory of God and to the purposes and the plans of the kingdom of God and how you would lead us. So Lord, we thank you. Bless each one of us as we go today. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Amen. Thank you everyone for coming.